A crow with glowing red eyes watches the chaos from above. In the ruins of a city, soldiers tower over a man weeping on the ground. Armed troops move through the smoke of the battlefield. Pluto grips his pistol, his face smeared with blood and grime. The gun clicks empty. They were just too weak to stand their ground. Muzzles flash as the enemy opens fire. Bullets tear through the air, finding their marks. Pluto collapses, his blood painting the pavement as his country falls. The world fades, leaving him in total darkness. Suddenly, a blinding light pierces through the void. He reaches out his hand toward the warmth of the light. Another hand reaches back, locking with his in a firm grip. Pluto is pulled back from the brink, reborn into a new existence. When he opens his eyes, he's in a world far away from the war. He's been living in this new reality for 3 years now. Today is the day he gets a second shot at life. At Aurora Academy, the students prepare for the awakening ceremony. The instructor yells for everyone to gather on the sports field immediately. This world was changed forever when dungeons and monsters appeared. Hordes of demons flooded the streets, turning the world into a nightmare. To fight back, humanity awakened into ranked classes. In this era, your rank is the only thing that determines your worth. Luna Viremont just awakened to S rank, manifesting incredible ice powers. The crowd is stunned. A 95 talent score is almost unheard of. But they're all really waiting for the Academy's top student to step up. Pluto's name is finally called, and he walks toward the stage. He holds the record with 200 talent points, making him a living legend. Even Luna can't look away as he approaches. She tells him not to let her down. He doesn't say a word, keeping his focus on what's ahead. Pluto walks up to the glowing awakening orb. He places his hand over it, and his eyes begin to glow with energy. The instructor watches closely, knowing Pluto is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. To the Academy, having a student like him is a massive blessing. An S-rank awakening would guarantee him a spot in the top guild. The Azure Dragon Guild is the most powerful organization in the nation. A spot there means fame, money, and absolute status. But for Pluto, it means being part of the nation's military power. He remembers his past life, dying like trash because his nation was weak. This time, he's going to be the strongest person in the world. The orb erupts in a massive, blinding pillar of blue light. The intensity is so high that everyone assumes he's hit S-rank. The instructor and Luna stare in disbelief, their faces pale with shock. Floating above the orb, a single word changes everything: Necromancer. Massive purple energy surges out as shadows of skeletons loom behind Pluto. The entire field goes dead silent as the flare of power dies down. Some students think it's an S-rank, but the reality is much worse. Pluto looks at his hands, wondering how a genius score resulted in a lowly C-rank class. His status window confirms the truth. He's just a level 0 necromancer with basic stats. Instructor Julian Kingsley crosses his arms, his face twisting with disappointment. Pluto swipes the screen away, unimpressed by the mediocre skills he's been given. A single summon every 30 minutes is barely enough to survive, let alone lead. Suddenly, a hidden system notification flashes. All summoning limits have been removed. Pluto's frustration vanishes instantly as he realizes the potential of this glitch. With no cooldown and no cap, his mana is the only thing holding him back. He envisions himself standing atop a colossal skeletal dragon. In his mind, he sees an unstoppable tide of undead soldiers marching for him. He clenches his head, his eyes burning with the realization that he is now a one-man army. No matter what the world thinks, he knows he can crush any S-rank. Kingsley's voice cuts through his thoughts, barking at him to stop spacing out and clear the stage. Pluto glances back, noting how quickly the faculty's respect has turned to contempt. He walks away with a smirk, already planning his path through the dungeons. The other students whisper behind his back, confused by his sudden change in mood. Adrian Blackwood, a student with a sneering expression and greenish-gray hair, steps into his path. He mocks the former golden boy for falling so far from grace. Boasting about his own A rank, Adrian offers to let Pluto be his pet in exchange for a carry. Pluto ignores the taunt, remembering that Adrian has always been desperate for his attention. The bully and his friend laugh, already imagining Pluto crawling behind them like a dog. Adrian calls him a hotshot and tells him to take the generous offer. Pluto doesn't even waste his breath, walking right past the trash. He's surprised to find Luna Weiermont waiting for him near the courtyard. He tells her he's really not in the mood for any more jokes today. Instead of mocking him, she offers to take him out for a power-leveling session. Pluto is skeptical, wondering why an S-rank would bother carrying a lowly C-rank. Luna insists that with his talent score, there's no way he's just a regular necromancer. She grabs his arm, her eyes full of genuine belief in his hidden potential. She's sharp enough to know that 200 points doesn't just result in a weak class. Pluto thanks her for the offer to stoop down to his level. But then he pulls away, politely declining the help. He adjusts his tie, determined to reach the top on his own terms. His eyes glow with a cold purple light as he thinks about the levels he's about to gain. He looks back at the people who underestimated him, ready to surpass them all. Pluto arrives at the Aurora Academy dungeon hall, where a massive blue portal towers over the room. He ignores the stares of the other students and heads straight for the trials. Pluto enters the sequence trials, a solo dungeon where monsters scale from level 1 to 5. The risk is high, as challengers can't leave until they clear the wave or die trying, but the experience rewards are unmatched. Luna Weiermont and the elite class homeroom teacher watch the portal in shock, realizing Pluto has actually entered. The teacher covers her mouth, horrified that a mere C-rank would attempt something so dangerous. She assumes Pluto has lost his mind, driven to a death wish after his disappointing awakening. Despite her fear, she knows Pluto isn't the type to simply give up. She decides to stay at the portal to watch for trouble and call for backup if things go south. Deep within the trial's domain, a massive floating island serves as the battlefield for the first wave. Pluto stands in the safe zone, preparing himself for the fight ahead. He knows there is no retreat once he steps into combat mode, and the trial begins. 10 level 1 void hounds emerge from the shadows, their eyes glowing with a malicious purple light. Pluto prepares his magic, noting that most rookies wouldn't dream of facing 10 monsters at once on the first floor. He summons his first 2 necromantic soldiers, watching as the skeletal warriors materialize in a burst of purple flames. With a command, he orders his soldiers to focus their fire on the lead hounds. One of his soldiers strikes a hound down with a powerful blow, disintegrating the beast. Seeing the success, Pluto realizes that as long as he can keep summoning soldiers, the mobs are manageable. He reflects on how quickly he went from being the center of attention to the butt of every joke. His hand glows with dark energy as he recalls the shift in everyone's attitude. He remembers Julian Kingsley barking at him to move on after the ceremony was over. He recalls the sight of the void hounds, equating his struggle now to the obstacles he faced before. He remembers Adrian Blackwood's mockery, offering to make him a pet because of his A-rank status. The memories of being called part of an inferior race in his past life fuel his desire to prove them all wrong. He remembers his past self, beaten and bruised, and the look of pity or contempt from others. With a look of pure determination, he vows that he will become the strongest, no matter his rank. Casting aside his mana limits, he summons an entire squad of skeletal soldiers to surround him. With 10 necromantic soldiers now at his side, he is ready to dominate the first floor. He strategizes, assigning 2 soldiers per hound to ensure maximum efficiency in the slaughter. The soldiers make quick work of another void hound, earning Pluto even more experience points. Experience notifications flood his vision as the hounds fall one by one to his undead army. He calculates his mana regeneration, knowing he can have a full pool ready in just 10 minutes. He looks toward the horizon, envisioning the day he leads an entire legion of skeletons. He orders his soldiers forward, pushing deeper into the trial with unrelenting momentum. The final hounds of the wave are cut down, their bodies dissolving into the ether. A massive pillar of light erupts as Pluto reaches level 1, far faster than he ever expected. He realizes that each level up offers free stat points and a 30% mana recovery. His status window updates, showing his new level and 5 unallocated stat points. Without hesitation, he dumps all his points into his mana pool, his most vital resource. With his increased mana capacity, he can now sustain an even larger army of 15 summons. He looks up, his eyes sharp and ready to take on the challenge of the next floor. Stepping onto floor 2, his soldiers immediately clash with a gray wolf, which yields even more experience. He remains cautious, keeping soldiers on guard to protect his fragile frame from any surprises. Another surge of power washes over him as he levels up again, finding the solo grinding to be incredibly effective. Pluto watches his status window update as he hits level 2, with his mana capacity increasing to fuel his growing army. He realizes he's entered a perfect leveling loop. More soldiers lead to faster kills, which grant more levels and even more soldiers. Deep in the trial, he encounters level 4 mud horses and notes that the difficulty is steadily ramping up. A massive mud horse snorts aggressively, its eyes glowing red as it prepares to defend its territory. With a confident smirk, Pluto points his finger and orders his skeletal vanguard to take the beasts down. A necromantic soldier delivers a devastating overhead strike, smashing into a mud horse with bone-crushing force. The beast is slain instantly, granting Pluto another 40 experience points toward his next level. However, one of his summons is destroyed in the fray, making him realize that the enemies are now strong enough to fight back. Unfazed, Pluto channels more mana and swells his ranks, commanding a total of 30 soldiers at once. The sheer number of skeletons overwhelms the remaining mud horses, resulting in a flurry of experience notifications. A burst of light surrounds Pluto as he reaches level 5, a major milestone in his rapid progression. A new notification appears. He has qualified for a restriction removal, unlocking even more of his class's hidden potential. The evolution lock is removed, allowing him to command his soldiers to absorb defeated targets and evolve into stronger forms. He envisions the possibilities, realizing he can now transform his generic skeletons into undead versions of any powerful foe he slays. Pluto grins at the prospect of his army gaining variety and specialized units as his kill count continues to rise. He stands tall like a true king of the underworld, silhouetted against a mountain of bones as his power grows. He recalls that necromancers receive a new skill every 5 levels and checks his interface for his latest ability. He unlocks the gunpowder skeleton skill, which allows him to convert summons into explosive units that detonate on impact. The idea of having area of effect damage excites him, and he can't wait to test these new suicide bombers on the level 5 monsters. He comes across a pack of level 5 blackback beasts, heavily armored creatures with thick, durable hides. He decides they are the perfect test subjects for his new explosive units, as his regular soldiers would struggle to chip through their armor. With a snap of his fingers, he activates the skill, and the heads of several skeletons ignite with a volatile purple flame. 3 skeletons carrying massive barrels of explosives charge toward the beasts with thunderous footsteps. Pluto watches with intense focus, ready to see the destructive power of his newly evolved tactics. Pluto looks a bit skeptical about his new minions. They're janky, but as long as they blow things up, he's happy. A skeleton with a flaming head sprints forward, lugging a massive barrel of gunpowder. The little guy drops the payload right under a blackback beast's nose. A massive explosion ripples through the field. Pluto watches as his target gets vaporized. The damage is even better than he expected. 100 EXP rolls in for every kill. If he wants to keep spamming these walking bombs, he's going to need a lot more mana. Pluto finishes the run and heads back. He got plenty of experience but 0 loot. He needs actual gear. As he steps out of the trial area, one of the instructors spots him and freezes in place. She can't believe her eyes. Pluto just hit level 5 in a single hour without a scratch on him. She realizes this C rank might be way more dangerous than his talent score let on. She needs to talk to the principal. Julian Kingsley, the Aurora Academy principal, is already buried in paperwork and doesn't want to be disturbed. He's annoyed that she's bothering him about a lowly C rank when they have actual S ranks to manage. The instructor explains the situation. A level 0 hitting level 5 that fast is physically impossible for a normal necromancer. Julian knows the math doesn't add up. One skeleton versus a pack of hounds should have been a slaughter, but not for the hounds. The question remains, how did a weak class pull off a world record clear? Meanwhile, Pluto is browsing the pro shop. Even the basic gear costs 10 gold, which he definitely doesn't have. Time to go hunting. He watches a group of high-level hunters limp out of a portal. They just got wrecked by the giant rhino mountain. Naturally, Pluto decides that's exactly where he's going. He sets the difficulty straight to gold. He enters the dungeon and summons a few skeleton soldiers to lead the way. He checks his stats, level 5 with enough mana to get the job done. Goal, kill the boss and get rich. Pluto commands his army forward. With his mana regeneration, his skeleton count can grow indefinitely. The level 5 rock rhinos appear. Pluto doesn't think he'll lose a single soldier against these guys. A spear pierces through a rhino's head. The first 50 EXP is in the bag. The rhino roars as it's swarmed by undead soldiers. Another giant rhino charges at the front line. Pluto realizes physical attacks are bouncing off their thick hides. Time for a tactical shift. He snaps his fingers, ready to show off his second trick. He converts one of his summons into a gunpowder skeleton on the fly. The explosion shatters the rhino's armor. 100 EXP rolls in. If high defense is the problem, he'll just turn his entire army into walking suicide bombs. A chain of explosions clears the field in seconds. Rhinos are getting vaporized left and right. A blue light surrounds Pluto. He just hit level 6. One more boss clear should get him to 7. He looks at his status screen. 5 stat points are waiting to be spent. The giant rock rhino king emerges from the shadows. It's absolutely massive. The beast lets out a deafening roar that shakes the cave. Pluto dodges a tremor. He wasn't expecting a level 5 boss to be this huge. He looks the king in the eye. It's already stepped into his trap. Pluto has nearly 100 explosive skeletons surrounding the boss. It has nowhere to run. A massive blast engulfs the boss. The cave lighting turns bright orange. The king is vaporized before it can even move. Pluto reaches level 7 instantly. 5,000 EXP in one go. Impressive. A purple light catches his eye in the wreckage. He got a rare drop. It's the giant rock staff. Epic quality, giving him a massive boost to his defense and mana. Just what he needed. Pluto's eyes go wide. He just hit the jackpot. He recalls the system's tier list. White for common, and climbing up through rare and epic until you hit unique. Getting epic gear on his first run is insane luck, especially since it's exactly the caster gear he needs. The stats are huge. 10 defense to cover his squishiness, and more importantly, a 30-point boost to his mana. He stands tall, checking his updated power. Dumping all his points into MP was definitely the right call. His status window updates, level 7 with 75 mana. That mana pool means he can maintain an army of 75 soldiers at once. He walks through the academy hall, but his peace doesn't last long. Adrian Blackwood steps out with that typical villain sneer. Pluto barely even blinks as the trash talk starts. Adrian mocks him for camping outside the dungeon, assuming no one wants to carry a C-rank trash like him. He brandishes his own rare gear, telling Pluto to be his dog if he wants a handout. His lackeys join in, telling Pluto to take the deal or he'll die a loser. The whole group laughs, clearly enjoying the public humiliation. Pluto stays calm, but his expression shifts. He doesn't mince words, telling Adrian to straight up F***CK off. Adrian snaps and grabs Pluto by the collar. One of the girls pulls him back, reminding him that fighting in the dungeon hall is strictly prohibited. The crowd watches as a guard finally makes his way over. The officer demands to know what the hell is going on. Adrian hides his anger with a fake smile, pretending they're just old classmates playing around. The guard isn't buying it and tells them to either get in a dungeon or get out. Adrian leans in for one last threat, promising to finish Pluto the moment they're outside. He leads his crew away, bragging about hitting level 5 today. Pluto just watches them go, thinking he would have flattened the guy if they hadn't been stopped. The guard tells Pluto to find him if they bother him again. He warns Pluto that the dungeon he's aiming for is too high level for him to find a party. Then he sees the staff in Pluto's hand and nearly chokes. Pluto ignores the warning and starts setting up his daily runs to grind. The guard realizes only the Rhino King at Gold difficulty drops that staff, which means this kid is the real deal. Pluto vanishes back into the portal for his next 3 runs. He's back in the thick of it, picking up the pace with his skeleton squad. Outside, the guard is still processing the fact that a freshman just soloed a gold dungeon. Even the Academy's S-ranks couldn't pull that off at this level. Back in the dungeon, another Rock Rhino King roars, but it's just a target now. Pluto just smirks. These big guys never learn. Another 5,000 EXP rolls in as the boss gets vaporized. The king falls, its massive body shaking the ground. Pluto doesn't even break a sweat. Another run, another explosion. The grind never stops. He orders his skeletons to keep the barrels coming. Another rhino bites the dust. Only one more daily run to go. Pluto looks over his haul. He's got plenty of gear loot, but none of it fits his build. He'll just sell it all for a profit later. With his daily runs exhausted, he heads home. He's got the rookie professional test tomorrow morning, and he needs to be ready. He checks his stats one last time. At level 9, with his new epic staff boosting his mana to 85, he's feeling unstoppable. The next morning, Aurora Academy is buzzing with energy as students gather for the big day. The rumor mill is in full swing. Everyone's talking about the Azure Dragon Guild sending observers to scout for top prospects. Nearby, students are comparing their progress. One managed to hit level 4, while another is struggling at level 2. Pluto listens in, unimpressed. Their leveling speed seems incredibly slow compared to the pace he's been setting. "There you are, big shot," a familiar, sneering voice cuts through the air. Adrian Blackwood stands there, boasting about reaching level 5. He mocks Pluto, asking if he's found someone to carry his trash rank yet. On the balcony above, Julian Kingsley calls for silence. The rookie professional test is officially beginning. The instructor explains the stakes. Azure Dragon will pick the top 5 prospects, and the first-place winner gets a bonus piece of epic gear. The students erupt in whispers. Epic quality gear is a dream for rookies at their level. Kingsley introduces the guest of honor, Elder Aaron Crowley, a high-ranking professional known as the Inexhaustible Fountain. The rules are simple. Each student gets a private room where Crowley will spawn summons. 1 kill equals 1 point over 30 minutes. Elder Crowley steps forward, his presence commanding and his eyes glowing with an intense blue light. Fear ripples through the crowd. The gap between them and a level 70 professional is astronomical. They worry they won't stand a chance. Crowley raises a hand to calm them, promising to lock the summons at level 1 and stop the test if anyone gets overwhelmed. The tension breaks and the students' confidence returns. With the difficulty capped, they're ready to go all out. Adrian can't help but take one more jab at Pluto, predicting he'll struggle to get even a single kill. Pluto doesn't flinch. A faint purple light flickers in his eye as he tells Adrian he's ready to play right now. He proposes a wager, a bet on who can achieve the higher rank in the upcoming test. Adrian just scoffs, finding the idea of a C-rank competing with him ridiculous. He laughs in Pluto's face, wondering if the guy has finally lost his mind. Leaning in close, he demands to know if Pluto still genuinely believes he's some kind of talented genius. Adrian sets the penalty. The loser has to crawl and bark like a dog in front of the entire school. Pluto agrees without hesitation. The announcement blares across the grounds. Day 1 of the rookie professional test is officially kicking off. The massive doors slide open, and the students are ordered into their individual testing chambers. On the observation deck, an assistant confirms everyone is in position. Crowley gives a simple nod to begin. The Elder, a level 75 bronze shaper, activates his mana, and a massive teleportation array hums to life. In Pluto's room, a magic circle glows on the floor as the first wave of summons begins to materialize. Pluto watches the process with interest, waiting for his targets to appear. A group of level 1 bronze soldiers steps out of the light, weapons at the ready. Pluto doesn't wait. He summons his own skeletal warriors, eager to see how they'll handle the Elder's creations. A bronze soldier charges forward, thrusting its spear with mechanical precision. One of Pluto's skeletons meets the charge head-on, swinging its massive axe with bone-crushing force. With a loud clang, the skeleton's strike connects, shattering the bronze warrior into pieces. Pluto stands amidst the debris. He's surprised at how easily they crumble. They'd only be a challenge if his summon limit was still 1. Crowley notices the rapid clear on his monitors. Surprised that someone took down 5 soldiers already, he decides to increase the pressure. More circles appear on the floor. The Elder is ramping up the numbers to test the students' limits. Despite the increasing volume, Pluto's skeletons are more than enough to handle the bronze waves. He directs his summons efficiently, pairing 1 skeleton against 2 bronze soldiers to keep the clearing speed high. Outside, Crowley's eyes widen in disbelief. 10 bronze soldiers down in an instant. This isn't what he expected from a rookie. Elder Aaron Crowley, a high-ranking professional with a flowing white beard and a piercing blue aura, watches the test monitors with newfound interest. "Seems your academy has some talented students," he remarks, his voice filled with calm authority. Standing beside him, Julian Kingsley, the academy's authoritative principal in a sharp suit, reacts with frantic urgency. "Pull up the leaderboard, show me who's number 1, he barks at the assistants. As the names flash onto the screen, Kingsley's eyes nearly pop out of his head. "It's Pluto," he shouts, his voice cracking with utter disbelief. The holographic display confirms the impossible reality. Pluto is in first place with 15 points, triple the score of the runner-up. Even Adrian Blackwood, the local prodigy, is trailing far behind in 4th place with only 3 points. The elite class homeroom teacher gasped, leaning forward as she monitored the data. "And his score is still climbing every second," she exclaimed, unable to hide her growing astonishment at this student. The leaderboard updates in real time, showing Pluto's score surging to 23 points. The gap between him and the rest of the class is widening into a chasm. Kingsley is at a complete loss for words. How is this possible?" he stammers. Crowley looks back at him, a knowing glint in his blue eyes as he asks if the principal is finally willing to believe the evidence of his own eyes. The principal clutches his head, trying to process the data. Impossible! Was he able to break past his class limits because of his 200 talent points? He wonders aloud, grappling with the sheer scale of Pluto's hidden potential. Crowley's thoughts drift back to his own youth. Even when he was the city's top scorer, he only had 99 talent points. This kid, with double that amount, is a diamond in the rough that needs to be polished. A surge of magical power erupts from the Elder as he decides to take the test to the next level. "Then I might as well give you a push," he declares, his blue energy flaring brilliantly as he prepares a massive summon. Inside his private test chamber, Pluto remains perfectly calm. To him, the first wave of 10 bronze soldiers was zero threat, even easier than his solo grinds at Giant Rhino Mountain. Suddenly, a violent whoosh of air echoes through the room. Pluto senses a massive shift in the atmosphere and turns his head, sensing a far greater force materializing behind him. "What the?" Pluto's eyes widen as dozens of magic circles bloom on the floor simultaneously. The Elder is no longer holding back, flooding the room with a sea of bronze warriors. Pluto's expression hardens as he assesses the new threat. The sheer density of the magical energy in the room is unlike anything he's faced before. A massive phalanx of 30 bronze soldiers stands ready to crush him. The scale of the challenge is absolutely insane for a rookie test, more fitting for a veteran professional. A dark, confident smile spreads across Pluto's face as he grips his staff tightly. Purple necromantic energy begins to swirl around him. "But if it's a numbers game," he whispers. With a violent explosion of shadow and bone, Pluto unleashes his full power. A massive army of skeletons rises to meet the bronze horde head-on. "Then let's see whose army is stronger," he roars as 30 skeletal warriors manifest in the room. Inside Adrian's testing room, the second heir of the Blackwood family is busy hacking through waves of enemies. Adrian grits his teeth, determined to stay ahead. He's convinced Pluto has no chance of catching up. Looking back 2 years ago to the talent assessment, Adrian was the star of the show with a score of 77. He basked in the praise back then, with everyone assuming his high score guaranteed him an elite future. But then the news hit. Pluto had somehow pulled a massive 200 points. The announcement left Adrian and the other elites staring in total disbelief. The other students were practically worshipping Pluto's talent, calling it a nationwide top-tier score. Even the elite class homeroom teacher acknowledged him, telling the others that they would have to work twice as hard just to keep pace with him. That acknowledgement didn't sit well with Adrian at all. Sitting in his family's mansion, he couldn't stand the thought of being overshadowed by an orphan. He refused to accept that he was supposed to share the spotlight with someone he considered beneath him. Back in the present, he slams his sword down, venting all that old frustration. He's convinced his Berserker Knight class will eventually crush a pathetic necromancer. He laughs like a maniac, sitting at 15 points and feeling confident about their bet. Elsewhere, a blade connects with a heavy metallic clank. Pluto's skeletons are already deep in the fight, and his score is climbing past 79. His summons weave through the bronze soldiers, cutting them down with clinical precision. The enemies don't stand a chance, as a heavy axe comes swinging down on them. Pluto stands in the middle of the wreckage, his score hitting a clean 100. But he's not celebrating yet. He started with 30 soldiers and he's already down to 16. He knows the pressure is building, so he begins summoning more reinforcements to fill the gaps. His mana is draining fast, and he notices the enemy spawn rate just took a sudden, suspicious jump. In the observation deck, Julian Kingsley and the staff are losing their minds. Pluto just shattered the old record. Crowley watches closely, noting that Pluto just wiped out 100 high-level enemies at level 1. Crowley tightens his grip on his cane, deciding to see just how much this kid can actually handle. He releases a massive surge of blue energy, manually cranking up the test's difficulty. The old man's eyes glow with intensity as he watches the screen. Julian rushes over, worried that the elder is draining too much of his own mana for this little stunt. Crowley scoffs, saying he could summon 10,000 of those soldiers without breaking a sweat. But he realizes he might have gotten carried away. There are now way too many summons in Pluto's room. Inside the room, Pluto catches on to what's happening and lets out a cold smirk. He's facing down an absolute wall of bronze soldiers that shouldn't even be there yet. Since the game changed, he decides it's time to stop holding back and bring out the heavy hitters. He snaps his fingers, activating a specialized skill, Gunpowder Skeleton. The skeletons at his side begin to transform, their forms shifting as the skill takes hold. A new squad emerges, each one carrying a massive, flaming barrel of explosives on its head. Pluto looks on with a chilling expression, giving the order to turn the room into dust. The kamikaze skeletons charge, head first into the enemy ranks. Back in the booth, Julian screams for the test to be shut down before Pluto gets overwhelmed. He's panicking because no student should be taking on hundreds of silver-tier enemies at once. The elite class homeroom teacher observed the leaderboard from the sidelines, her usual calm replaced by genuine concern. She reaches out toward the screen, desperately wanting to stop what's about to happen. In the observation deck, Julian Kingsley is practically losing his mind as the situation in the arena spirals out of control. He's desperate to stop the test, terrified that the boy will be torn apart by the relentless wave of bronze soldiers. But Pluto's points are ticking up at an impossible speed, crossing 201. Before anyone can even blink, the display flashes 295. It keeps climbing, hitting 350 points without a single sign of slowing down. Julian can hardly believe the numbers he's seeing on the screen. Crowley realizes that if a rookie can show this much power, he might be the one to save the entire nation one day. The instructor begs the elder to call the summons back, but Crowley is determined to see exactly where this kid's limit is. Massive explosions rock the testing floor as the score shatters 800. Through the fire and smoke, The points blast past 900. A few bronze soldiers are still standing in the wreckage, struggling to stay in the fight. Pluto remains perfectly calm, standing firm as the dust finally starts to settle. One of his skeletons finishes off the last remaining enemies with a swift strike. Pluto stands alone in the middle of a literal war zone, his score hitting a staggering 1,000 points. Up in the booth, the instructors stare in silence as the simulation comes to an abrupt halt. Crowley is genuinely impressed. The boy managed to eliminate every single soldier he summoned. Julian is breathless, asking the elder for his opinion and wondering if he should bring the kid in right away. The rest of the staff can only watch in awe at the miracle they just witnessed. Crowley's eyes narrow. He's decided he needs to meet this boy personally. Julian tries to argue that the test isn't over for the other students, but Crowley is already stepping into a magic circle. He doesn't care about the protocol. His movements won't affect the other rooms anyway. The old man knows that if these results are legitimate, this boy's potential is beyond measure. With a sharp flash, he vanishes from the observation deck. Back in the testing chamber, Pluto lets out a long breath, relieved that it's finally over. He knows that without mass summoning those gunpowder skeletons, that fight would have been a disaster. Suddenly, he senses a massive presence appearing right behind him. He spins around, wondering if there are even more enemies on the way. Instinct kicks in, and he orders his skeletons to box the intruder in. His undead soldiers charge, but they're dealing with someone far beyond their level. Crowley lets out a powerful shout that stops the skeletons dead in their tracks. He just sits there calmly, his presence alone freezing the necromantic summons in place. Pluto is shocked to see Elder Crowley standing right in front of him. The old man points out that a normal C-rank class shouldn't be able to pull off a feat like this. He reminds Pluto that necromancers are supposed to have a strict one-summon limit every 30 minutes. Pluto starts sweating as the elder notes that 30 minutes haven't even passed since the test began. Crowley leans on his cane, demanding to know how exactly he managed to summon so many soldiers so fast. The boy's mind races, realizing he's been caught breaking the fundamental rules of the system. But Crowley tells him not to worry. He only cares if Pluto's power can be used to protect the nation. Pluto looks him in the eye, knowing he needs the approval of the vice-chairman of the Azure Dragon Guild to succeed. He decides to hide his full hand, showing just enough power to keep the old man interested. A dark aura erupts as he prepares to show off his summoning skill one more time. He summons his skeletons one at a time, playing along with the lie of a massive cooldown. Pluto realizes that his summons have a maximum duration of 1 hour, at least for now. He knows deep down that the traditional rules of his class simply do not apply to him anymore. With his army at his back, he understands that his power is truly unrestricted. Crowley's eyes widen as he finally puts a name to the anomaly: unrestricted necromancy. The old man remains silent for a moment, processing the sheer magnitude of what he's just discovered. He asks if Pluto can truly lead an entire tireless legion alone. The boy gives a simple, theoretical confirmation. The elder realizes that this isn't just a talented kid. Pluto is on a level that defies common sense. Crowley declares that Pluto's talent is a national priority, and he's going to ensure his future is secured with the guild. Before teleporting out, he promises to return tomorrow, leaving Pluto stunned by the mention of the Azure Dragon's chairman. Pluto watches as the magic circle begins to hum, still processing the gravity of the elder's words. As a parting gesture, Crowley holds out an ornate golden key, calling it a gift from his guild. The boy stares at the artifact, sensing the incredible power radiating from the small object. The elder identifies it as a blessing key, the only way to enter a legendary blessing rift. Pluto remembers reading about such rifts back in his academy lectures. He recalls that these rifts scale to the user's level and offer unmatched experience and loot drops. Most importantly, he knows these keys are nearly impossible to find, with a drop rate of almost 0. He can't believe that Crowley is just handing over something so incredibly valuable to a student. The old man's expression is stern, signaling that he expects great things in return for this investment. The golden key changes hands, a physical contract for Pluto's newfound path. With a sharp swoosh, Crowley vanishes into a pillar of blue light, leaving the room silent. Pluto clenches the key, already planning to head to the rift the moment the school day ends. Outside, an instructor announces that the 30-minute time limit for the rookie test has finally expired. In his own room, Adrian Blackwood collapses against his weapon, completely exhausted from the trial. He looks over the broken remains of his enemies, confident that his performance was unbeatable. He brags about taking down 40 soldiers, certain that he's secured the top spot in the entire academy. A loudspeaker summons all students to the playground for the immediate announcement of the results. The school grounds quickly fill with students, the air thick with nervous chatter and excitement. Everyone is talking about how brutal the bronze soldiers were, with even high scores barely reaching double digits. Adrian scans the crowd with a predatory grin, looking for his target to claim his victory. He spots Pluto standing quietly among the other students and sneers, ready to make good on their bet. He moves through the crowd with a sudden swish, closing the distance before Pluto can even react. Adrian grabs the boy by his tie, his face contorted in an arrogant, mocking sneer. Pluto remains calm, even as the rich kid tries to intimidate him in front of everyone. Adrian demands to know if he's ready to fulfill his end of the bargain and start barking like a dog. He's eager to humiliate the trash necromancer who dared to stand up to the Blackwood name. High above on the balcony, an official calls for silence to begin the announcement of the Day 1 scores. Instructor Julian Kingsley steps forward with the official list, ready to reveal the top 5 achievers. He starts with rank 5, Tristan Ashcroft, who managed to score 39 points. Adrian whispers to Pluto that his own score is even higher, gloating about his guaranteed win. The announcer reveals rank 4 is Adrian Blackwood with 41 points, prompting him to tell Pluto to get on the floor. When Pluto doesn't budge, Adrian mocks the idea of a lowly necromancer ever reaching the top 3. But then Luna Viremont is announced as rank 3 with 77 points, sending a wave of cheers through the crowd. The crowd is stunned as the announcer continues, revealing Luna's incredible score even though her class is support-focused. Then comes rank 2, Colin Lancaster, a combat S rank who is visibly outraged to have only taken 2nd place. The instructor, Julian Kingsley, takes a deep, steadying breath as he looks down at the final name on his glowing list. With a shout that echoes across the grounds, he declares Pluto as the rank 1 winner with an impossible 1,000 points. A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the entire student body as the gravity of that number sinks in. Then the playground erupts into chaos, with students screaming in disbelief at a score that has shattered the Academy's all-time record. Everyone is questioning how a C rank could possibly outperform the elite S ranks in such a dramatic fashion. The 2nd place finisher, Colin, does the math and realizes that Pluto would have needed a killing speed that defies human limits. Adrian Blackwood is paralyzed, his face pale and slick with cold sweat as his reality crumbles around him. His eyes are wide and bloodshot, fixed on the boy he had just been mocking seconds before. He stammers in disbelief, unable to comprehend how he could have been so utterly defeated by someone he considered trash. Pluto stares back with a cold, unwavering gaze, simply stating the obvious: Adrian has lost the bet. Adrian recoils as if struck, screaming about cheating, because he refuses to accept a C rank could ever be superior to him. The surrounding students begin to whisper, recalling the terms of the bet and anticipating Adrian's public humiliation. Many of them are secretly delighted to see the arrogant heir of the Blackwood family finally knocked off his pedestal. Adrian stumbles backward, the weight of the crowd's judgment pressing down on him like a physical force. He falls to the ground, pointing a trembling finger at Pluto while still desperately shouting that something must be wrong. Other students start to jeer, telling Adrian not to be such a sore loser and to honor the agreement he made. The announcer ignores the drama, declaring that the top scorer will receive epic-quality gear from the Azure Dragon Guild. Pluto turns his back on the groveling Adrian, telling him he won't waste any more breath on someone so insignificant. As Pluto walks away toward the stage, some students comment on how merciful he's being by letting Adrian off the hook. But Adrian's humiliation has turned into a murderous rage, and he screams a vow to kill Pluto for this insult. Pluto doesn't even look back, his expression hardened and his focus already on the path ahead. A dark, spectral aura begins to swirl behind him, a silent warning of the immense necromantic power he now commands. Adrian collapses, screaming in total disbelief as the reality of the results finally sinks in. Pluto just looks on, completely unbothered by the other guy's massive meltdown. He turns his back on the drama and starts heading up the stairs to leave the arena. Julian Kingsley catches up to him, placing a hand on his shoulder to offer some genuine congratulations. Since he took the top spot, it's finally time for him to collect his first-place rewards. Julian presents 3 different epic tier gear options, letting the new champion take his pick. Pluto scans the items, looking for something that actually complements his necromancer build. The heavy armor and longsword are great for warriors, but they're basically dead weight for someone like him. He goes for the Moonveil robe instead, which provides a massive boost to his total mana pool. An extra 50 mana means he can keep 50 more soldiers on the battlefield simultaneously. Julian raises Pluto's arm high, officially declaring him the winner of the Day 1 rookie test. The entire crowd erupts, chanting his name as they celebrate the Academy's newest record breaker. He takes a moment to enjoy the win, knowing this is only the first step in his plan. Julian shouts for everyone to keep grinding, because the real guild trials are only a month away. Later that night, Pluto returns to his quiet apartment in the slum district to prepare for the next step. He pulls out the golden blessing key that Elder Crowley gave him after the assessment. Following the standard procedure, he starts channeling his mana directly into the artifact. The space around the key begins to crack and fizzle as it reacts to his energy. A dark, swirling rift tears open right in the middle of his living room. He remembers Crowley's warning about finding a healer to back him up before entering a rift. But he just scoffs at the advice. Having a teammate would just get in his way. Pluto steps through the portal, choosing to handle the high-level risks on his own. He's transported instantly to a desolate mountainous region deep inside the Blessing Rift. It's a level 9 zone, and the atmosphere is already looking pretty hostile. A pack of blade-tail leopards spots him almost immediately and starts closing in. These things are fast as hell, so he knows the best strategy is to keep them at a distance. He slams his staff down, calling forth his army of necromantic soldiers. The skeletons form a tight defensive ring around him, locking their shields together. A leopard lunges into the trap and gets instantly skewered. The EXP gain is already massive. Pluto is impressed. Even the trash mobs here give a better payout than he expected. With the entrance clear, he decides to push deeper into the mountains. He realizes that keeping half his army on guard duty is wasting a lot of his potential firepower. More leopards are taken down as the skeletons march forward, grinding through the pack. One beast tries to snap at a soldier, but it's completely overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. A golden light washes over him as he finally hits the double digits, level 10. The milestone unlocks a new skill in his repertoire, Death Glare. A massive, terrifying red eye manifests in the sky above the battlefield. This is the Eye of the Dead, a skill that inflicts absolute terror on anyone who locks eyes with it. It's a powerful crowd control tool, but it usually comes with a crippling 24-hour cooldown. Most hunters consider it a trash skill because you can only use it once a day. But for Pluto, cooldowns don't exist. He can theoretically keep a boss locked in fear forever. A loud clang echoes through the canyon as he moves to finish clearing the rift. Right as Pluto is clearing the mobs, the big guy makes his grand entrance, the blade-tail leopard king. He's caught a bit off guard. He wasn't expecting the rift boss to show its face this early. He doesn't waste any time, ordering his skeletons to box the beast in and eradicate it. The king just lunges, a blur of fur and claws ready to shred anything in its path. It's too fast. With one massive swipe, it starts turning his skeletal guard into literal bone meal. Pluto watches his defenses crumble, realizing the king's speed is on a whole different level. If he stays on the defensive, his entire army is going to get wiped before they even touch the boss. It's time to pivot. He raises his staff, deciding to give his newest skill a proper field test. A massive, ominous energy begins to swirl above the battlefield as space itself starts to warp. This is the Eye of the Dead, a manifestation of pure terror that he's finally ready to unleash. He calls out to the king, taunting the beast into looking straight into the void. The Leopard King snarls back, completely unaware of the nightmare that's about to hit its nervous system. The red light of the eye connects, sending a wave of absolute fear through the beast. Pluto smirks. He's got the king exactly where he wants it. The spectral eye flares with power, locking the massive predator in place. It works. The king is hit with the fear status, leaving it completely paralyzed and helpless. Pluto calculates the duration, figuring the level gap gives him about 5 seconds of total control. Whatever the duration, he knows he can just summon another eye as soon as the first one fades. While the beast is frozen, he converts his remaining soldiers into gunpowder skeletons. With a single command, he sends the Suicide Squad straight at the boss. A series of massive explosions rock the canyon as the barrels detonate all at once. The Leopard King is caught in the center of the inferno, roaring as the fire eats through its health. The fear effect finally wears off, but Pluto isn't about to give the beast its turn. He activates his restriction removal, resetting the skill and preparing to cast it again instantly. He calls for another death glare, refusing to give the king an inch of breathing room. The red eye manifests again, slamming the beast right back into a state of absolute terror. He follows up with another round of explosions, turning the boss room into a literal furnace. The king finally falls, and the payout is massive, 30,000 experience points in one go. Pluto can't believe the numbers. He's never seen a dungeon give 2 full levels from a single run before. He checks his status, seeing that he's already hit level 11 with plenty of points to spend. But the level isn't the most important part. He also unlocked a new restriction removal at level 10. He checks out the new perk. The physical form lock has been officially removed. This grants him access to nether form, a bodiless state where all attacks phase right through him. It's the ultimate survival skill, though the mana drain is high enough to make it a risky play. He realizes that if he wants to keep this active, he's going to need to stack way more MP gear. Just as he's about to wrap things up, something catches his eye in the center of the boss's remains. A blinding golden light erupts, a legendary drop, and it's come way earlier than he expected. Meanwhile, the mood is much less celebratory over at the Blackwood family mansion. Adrian Blackwood sits in his luxury living room, nursing a drink and fuming over his defeat. All he can see when he closes his eyes is Pluto's cold, arrogant face looking down at him. He can't stop replaying the moment he was humiliated in front of the entire academy. Overwhelmed by pure rage, he crushes the crystal glass in his hand as he swears revenge. Adrian's butler asks about his injury. Adrian snaps, ordering a cleanup for an upcoming guest. Fuming, Adrian vows that Pluto will regret humiliating him. A servant announces the arrival of the mysterious guest. Adrian shouts at his staff to get out immediately. He orders the visitor shown in, dismissing the servants. Cedric Thornhill enters, a glowing bow strapped to his back. House staff whisper about the newcomer's ominous presence. A senior butler warns that the guest is far more dangerous than he looks. Cedric's reputation precedes him, a marksman with dozens of long-range kills. Rank Cedric doubles his rates for targets like women or children. Adrian specifies the target is male. Cedric finds that boring. The assassin sits, radiating cold professionalism. Adrian is rattled by the marksman's sharp instincts. Cedric mockingly points out the obvious nature of the contract. He scoffs at an A rank needing help with a non-S rank target. Adrian hesitantly reveals Pluto is just a necromancer. Cedric is incredulous that a trash class caused such a mess. Adrian confirms the humiliating truth through gritted teeth. The assassin begins to find the situation hilarious. Cedric laughs loudly, mocking a berserker for losing to a C rank. Adrian desperately cites Pluto's abnormal growth and guild interest. The mention of the Azure Dragon Guild makes Cedric pause. A heavy silence falls as the stakes rise. Cedric demands a significantly higher fee for the complication. Adrian agrees without hesitation, desperate for his rival's death. Cedric demands a photo and info to finalize the hit. With a sinister grin, Adrian orders the hit. He explains that as a classmate, finding Pluto is easy. Cedric prepares to leave, while Adrian warns him against failure. Cedric's aura darkens as he bristles at Adrian's doubt. Adrian quickly retreats, stammering apologies to the killer. Cedric insults Adrian's weakness before walking out. Alone, Adrian rages at being disrespected once again. He collapses onto his sofa, exhausted by his own fury. His obsession deepens. Pluto's death is his only priority. Back at the academy, a spatial rift opens in Pluto's room. Pluto inspects his new legendary Void Slicer. Though useless for a caster, the dagger's market value is immense. He tallies his gains, massive XP and 2 powerful new skills. Grateful to Elder Crowley, Pluto heads for the exit. Dark energy swirls as he teleports back home. Pluto steps into his room, his secret training complete. Pluto steps back into his mundane dorm room, feeling the sudden weight of its cramped walls after the rift's expanse. Suddenly, the glass shatters as a streak of blue energy tears through the window with a violent crack. Before Pluto can even react, the magical projectile pierces through his chest, pinning him with lethal force. He collapses instantly, his body hitting the floor with a heavy thud as life drains from his eyes. From a rooftop across the city, Cedric Thornhill lowers his glowing bow, coldly declaring the target eliminated. In a high-end office at the Azure Dragon Guild headquarters, a single question is being repeated. Did some kid really score 200 talent points? Aaron Crowley confirms the news. He notes that even the chairman only reached 120, making this rookie's potential basically immeasurable. Victor Langley considers the implications. If they cultivate this talent properly, he could be the exact game changer the nation needs. He's hooked. He needs to know exactly what kind of class they're dealing with. Crowley drops the bomb. He's a necromancer. The room goes quiet as Victor processes that. Victor isn't buying the hype yet. He knows C-rank classes usually have a low ceiling, and he expects Crowley to know that too. But that's the catch. Crowley explains that this kid didn't just hit the limit, he completely shattered it. Victor's eyes narrow. He knows there has to be a trick to it. Crowley reveals the anomaly. The boy achieved unrestricted summoning. Victor does the math instantly. With enough mana, this isn't just one hunter, it's a one-man undead army. He asks if it's some kind of rare gear or a limited item. Crowley shakes his head, nodding the kid was only using a mundane, low-tier staff. A genius who broke the class system, Victor has seen enough. He needs to meet him immediately. He demands to know the kid's current location. Crowley mentions he gave him a blessing key, so he's likely busy clearing a rift as they speak. Victor gets worried. Once he's inside, they can't even reach him if something goes south. Crowley tries to reassure him, saying he warned the boy to find a support class for backup. Crowley is banking on the fact that the boy listened and brought a healer along for safety. Victor stares out the window. A necromancer with no limits might be the nation's only hope for the war that's coming. Somewhere else in the city, a magical arrow streaks through the night skyline like a bolt of blue lightning. It smashes through a window with a loud metallic clank. The bolt catches Pluto right in the back. Cedric Thornhill watches from a rooftop, satisfied with the kill. He's just annoyed he didn't arrive in time to snag that blessing key for himself. He settles in, ready to enjoy the show. He figures he'll just wait for the kid's teammates to crawl out and find the corpse. Behind the target, the rift finally collapses and disappears with a swish. But Cedric starts to realize something is wrong. The rift is closed, but nobody else is exiting. Back inside the room, Pluto is sitting against the wall, perfectly unharmed. Cedric can't believe the kid walked out of a solo run alive. Pluto catches his breath. admitting to himself that was a seriously close call. Luckily, he activated nether form just in time. The arrow didn't hit him. It passed right through his translucent, shadow-like body. He's beyond annoyed. He just had a near-death experience for absolutely no reason. Now he's officially pissed. He triggers a skill called Death Glare. A massive, glowing red eye opens in the sky, staring straight at the assassin. Cedric is panicking. He's positive his arrow hit its mark. Suddenly, Cedric's body locks up. A massive fear debuff hits him, and he can't move a single muscle. He tries to stay calm, thinking they're miles apart and Pluto can't possibly maintain control while closing the distance. He convinces himself he just needs to outlast the skill, and then he'll have plenty of ways to finish the job. Meanwhile, Pluto stays put, letting the assassin stew in his own terror. Cedric just grits his teeth, waiting for the pressure to break. Pluto realizes his plan to play dead and lure the guy in failed. This assassin is way more cautious than he expected. Time for Plan B. A skeleton soldier suddenly rises from the ground right behind the shooter. Cedric's eyes go wide. A summon over here. He can't understand how it got there so fast. Before he can even move, the skeleton drives its sword clean through his back. The fear finally lifted, but in a split second an arrow ripped straight through Pluto's skeleton soldier. Cedric gloats, boasting about his level 18 status and mocking Pluto's measly defense. He thinks the tide has turned and prepares to turn the kid into a human pincushion. But his face goes pale as he spots something in the sky again. The massive red eye of Death Glare looms over him once more. Pluto stands his ground, wreathed in dark energy as his signature skill locks onto the target. Cedric tries to rationalize it, convinced he just needs to outlast the typical 30-minute cooldown of a necromancer. Pluto gauges the situation. A single skeleton isn't enough to bridge a 5-level gap against a pro. Luckily for him, he doesn't just have one soldier, he has an endless supply. With a single command, he summons a literal army of necromantic soldiers. Cedric is losing his mind. He's never seen a necromancer field this many units at once. He realizes too late that Pluto isn't a normal C rank, and curses Adrian Blackwood for sending him into a suicide mission. Pluto gives the signal to move out. The skeletons swarm the skyscraper, skittering up the walls like insects. They smash through the glass, raining shards down as they breach the rooftop. In seconds, Cedric is surrounded by a circle of blades and hollow eyes. One soldier lunges with a heavy axe, forcing the assassin onto the defensive. Pluto watches from below, thinking that if these guys could fly, the fight would already be over. Cornered and desperate, Cedric begs for mercy, offering to lead Pluto to his employer. A voice from the shadows asks him why he thinks he's worth keeping alive. Pluto steps into view, looking down at the shivering assassin. Cedric tries to trade information, offering the name of the man who hired him for his life. Pluto isn't interested. He already knows Adrian Blackwood is behind the hit, and he plans to settle that debt personally. Cedric is stunned. He can't understand how the boy already has all the answers. He starts offering free hits on anyone Pluto wants, but the boy isn't listening. He tells him a professional killer should be ready for the end. Pluto admits the man is useful to him, but with a cold catch. He's only useful as a corpse. He gives the cold final order, kill him. Cedric lets out one last plea as a skeleton raises its blade. The weapon comes down with a sickening whistle. The assassin's scream is cut short, leaving Pluto standing in the aftermath with blood on his face. He looks down at the body, the job finally finished. The adrenaline fades and Pluto slumps down, the exhaustion hitting him all at once. He's just glad he managed to pull it off. Between nether form and the constant summons, his mana is almost bone dry, sitting at a precarious 15 points. He reflects on the play he used his 16-foot summon range to plant a soldier behind the door, the moment he went into nether form. He ordered the skeleton to hunt down the shooter while he stayed in the room as a target. He was the bait and the assassin took it hook, line, and sinker. Mana depletion is a gross, hollow feeling he's still not used to. He gives credit where it's due. The guy was a monster at long-range sniping. Now, he just hopes his next move doesn't drain the last of his energy. He reaches out to the corpse, triggering a hidden system prompt. Evolution lock removed. A ghostly, screaming energy erupts from the body as the soul absorption begins. Pluto holds the glowing, purple essence of Cedric Thornhill, recognizing it as the assassin's soul. He commands the soul to be injected into a skeletal soldier to complete the evolution. Dark energy swirls violently as the transformation begins. The system confirms that the evolution lock has been successfully removed. A shadowy, tall skeletal figure emerges from the vortex of mana. The evolution finishes, revealing the Hexi marksman, an A-rank soldier at level 11. The system displays its core abilities, Hexi vision and magic arrow. Pluto smiles, nodding that the evolved soldier's level will scale alongside his own as he grows stronger. Suddenly, a red alert appears, stating the evolution is incomplete and combat is impossible. Pluto is confused, wondering what final piece of the puzzle is missing. He puts a hand to his chin, analyzing the situation to find the missing link. A thought strikes him as he considers the requirements for a marksman. He looks toward the ground, realizing what he overlooked. Cedric's glowing blue bow lies on the rooftop where it fell. He inspects the mana-forged bow, an epic quality item that provides a significant MP boost. Pluto dismisses the bow's simple stats as boring, seeing a better use for it. He hands the weapon to the skeletal archer, testing his theory. The Hexi marksman lets out a piercing screech as the evolution finally completes. Pluto realizes that even an undead marksman cannot fight without a proper weapon. He tells the soldier to use the bow for now, promising better gear in the future. To Pluto's surprise, the skeleton speaks, acknowledging its master with a gravelly voice. Pluto is taken aback, not expecting his evolved soldier to have the gift of speech. The Hexi marksman bows its head respectfully before its master. It makes a single, humble request of Pluto. The soldier asks for the honor of being granted a name. Pluto looks at the skeletal archer, considering the weight of the request. He agrees that its current class name is a bit too clumsy for everyday use. He decides his first evolved soldier deserves a proper name with actual thought behind it. As he thinks, Pluto's mind wanders back to memories of his previous life. He recalls the dark days of war and the legend of a certain comrade. Ark, a man with silver hair and tactical gear, prepares his sniper rifle amidst the city ruins. A younger, less experienced Pluto asks if a single rifle can truly take out an enemy commander. Another soldier scoffs at the question, asking if Pluto even knows who he's talking to. He explains that Ark is a living legend who once sniped a target from 4 miles away. He reveals Ark's terrifying moniker, the Distant Reaper. Through Ark's sniper scope, we see the oblivious target and his escort. The enemy commander screams orders to show no mercy to the fallen nation. Ark's finger remains steady on the trigger, waiting for the perfect moment. A deafening crack echoes through the air as the sniper fires a single lethal shot. The commander's eyes widen as he realizes death is hurtling toward him. A spray of blood marks the successful headshot, ending the commander's tyranny instantly. The surviving soldiers scramble for cover in a panic, realizing they are in the sights of a master marksman. In a flashback to his previous life, a younger Pluto is stunned by a legendary sniper shot from miles away. He looks on with genuine admiration, calling the feat incredible. Pluto approaches the master marksman, Ark, eagerly asking for his name and a chance to learn his secrets. The sniper, known as the Distant Reaper, introduces himself as Archer to the eager rookie. In the present, Pluto's eyes narrow as he decides on the perfect identity for his new subordinate. He officially names the skeletal marksman Archer in honor of the legend from his past. The skeleton accepts the name with absolute loyalty, its rank and level finalized by the system. Pluto commands his new A-rank soldier to return to the shadows as the mission concludes. A system alert informs him that he has occupied the first of his 5 available evolution slots. He reflects on the limited number of slots, realizing every future choice must be a calculated one. He's glad he didn't waste such a precious resource on common dungeon monsters. Suddenly, a green teleportation array erupts beneath him, signaling the arrival of a powerful presence. Pluto notices a sudden glow. The light looks exactly like the teleport array from his rookie test, leaving him wondering who could be showing up now. Aaron Crowley materializes from the light, explaining that the chairman sent him out of concern. The elderly mage's expression shifts to shock as he begins to process the scene around them. He demands an explanation for the carnage that has taken place on the rooftop. The night sky hangs heavy over the building where the aftermath of the battle is laid bare. Pluto sticks to his cover story, claiming he was ambushed by assassins immediately after leaving the rift. A bead of sweat rolls down Pluto's face, aware that he narrowly avoided exposing his necromancy. Crowley asks about the status of Pluto's teammate, oblivious to Cedric's fate. Pluto hesitates, searching for a way to explain his teammate's absence. Crowley fixes him with a stern look, his suspicion mounting. He scolds Pluto for ignoring warnings and choosing to enter the dangerous rift solo. Pluto remains defiant, assuring the elder that he was never in any real danger. Crowley sees a reckless arrogance in the young man that reminds him of a younger Victor Langley. Pluto's caught off guard by the late-night visit. He expected to meet Crowley in the morning, not at midnight. But Crowley isn't waiting around. He says the situation is critical and he's been ordered to escort Pluto to headquarters immediately. The chairman is already waiting for them. Pluto takes one last look at the scene before they head out. Crowley assures him the guild's logistics team will handle the cleanup and run a full background check on everyone involved. Suddenly, they're standing outside on the sidewalk. Pluto's confused. He didn't see any teleportation array, but they somehow moved blocks in an instant. Crowley admits he's not a space-type mage, so he can't just manifest portals whenever he wants. He explains those were pre-constructed portals, and he just holds the access rights to activate them. Then he drops a bombshell. This time, he actually etched a temporary teleport array directly onto Pluto's new robe. Pluto's eyes widen. He had no idea the guy was messing with his gear. Crowley tells him to chill out. It was just a one-time use array, and it's already dissipated. Sure enough, the glowing purple seal on Pluto's back just dissolves into smoke. A black sedan pulls up right on cue. Two guys in green tracksuits hop out and bow. They're here to pick up the vice chairman. Crowley points back toward the roof. He wants the assassin's body cleared out and a full report on the guy's identity ASAP. The staff snaps to it. Pluto notices their gear. They're definitely the guild's non-combat support team. Crowley gestures for Pluto to hop in. No use keeping the big boss waiting. They peel off into the night, leaving the cleanup crew behind. One of the logistics guys is low-key jealous. Getting a personal escort from the vice chairman straight to the chairman is some serious VIP treatment. The other guy mentions he snuck a quick class check on the student while they were standing there. He's completely baffled. He expected some hidden S-rank prodigy, but the scan came back as a C-rank necromancer. His partner is losing it. Their own logistics department requires at least a B rank just to move boxes. He figures there's only one explanation. The kid detected his scan and forged his data in a split second. But that sounds even crazier. Forging info that fast is something even S-rank veterans can't pull off. He decides right then and there that Pluto is absolutely terrifying. Inside the car, Pluto is feeling the weight of the moment. He didn't expect to face the nation's strongest guild leader this early. Crowley senses the nerves and tells him to focus. They're arriving at the destination. The car pulls up to a massive, glowing skyscraper that towers over everything. This is the Azure Dragon headquarters. Even Pluto has to admit it looks magnificent. They walk up to a set of giant doors, engraved with a massive dragon. The place is huge. You can see the guild's flag flying high above the entrance. The staff inside immediately bow as Crowley walks through the lobby. Crowley doesn't waste any time. He tells them to take him straight to the chairman. They head down the hall with Pluto trailing just a step behind. Pluto's eyes are scanning everything. He notices the guards are decked out in level 50 A-rank paladin gear. One of the guards steps back and tells Crowley they'll withdraw while the meeting happens. Pluto gives a quick nod of thanks. They reach the end of the hall. Crowley stops and tells Pluto he's on his own from here. He has to open the door himself. Pluto realizes the scale of this guild. A level 50 paladin would be a top-tier hunter anywhere else, but here, they're just door guards. He reaches out and pushes the heavy door open. The office is dark, with a massive window looking out over the city lights. A lone figure sits in a chair, waiting. This is Victor Langley, the chairman. He's looking over the report on Cedric Thornhill, the distant reaper Pluto just took off the board. Langley already has the full profile. Pluto is impressed, or maybe just unnerved, by how fast the Azure Dragon Guild gathers intel. The chairman leans in, making it clear he's not just here for a friendly chat. He explains that mathematically, an S rank usually needs at least a 3-level advantage to steamroll an A rank. But he's staring at a statistical anomaly. A C rank rookie just took down a veteran A rank assassin who was 7 levels higher. On paper, someone like Cedric should have sniped Pluto before he could even call a single skeleton, let alone an entire army. This is Victor Langley, an S-rank bloodline warrior. He demands to know exactly how much power Pluto is hiding behind that low rank. Suddenly, the air in the room turns heavy. Pluto feels a wave of pure hostility crashing over him. It's killing intent so thick it's almost physical. Langley is testing his resolve, seeing if he'll fold under the pressure of a true predator. Meanwhile, across town, Adrian is having a much worse night. He's stuck listening to an automated message because his high-priced hitman isn't picking up the phone. He's losing his mind. Cedric promised the job would only take 3 minutes, but it's been hours without a single word. He slams his phone down in a fit of rage. He can't believe he trusted a professional with such a simple hit. In his eyes, assassins are just unreliable scum who can't be trusted to get their hands dirty when it actually counts. He realizes he's out of options. To handle this dead man walking once and for all, he's going to have to call in the big guns. He reaches for his phone again, his hand trembling with anger. He finally gets through. He tells his brother he's in trouble and needs his help to clean up a mess at the academy. His brother's eyes narrow. He wants to know who in Aurora City is actually stupid enough to mess with the Blackwood family. He's currently miles away, but he's not exactly relaxing. He tells Adrian he's in the middle of a guild mission right now, but he'll handle the problem as soon as he wraps things up. Behind him, a massive level 35 Frostland Bear King lets out a deafening roar that shakes the snowy wasteland. The beast lunges, but Adrian's brother doesn't even flinch. He just tells the monster to get out of his way. He meets the charge with a flaming punch that connects right in the bear's face. The impact sends the massive demon beast tumbling across the ice like it's nothing. He takes a second to catch his breath, but it's clear this mission won't keep him busy for long. Back at the guild headquarters, things are reaching a breaking point. Langley slams his foot onto the table, towering over Pluto. He demands to know the truth about Pluto's hidden abilities. Pluto doesn't back down. He summons his scythe in a burst of dark energy, ready to defend himself. He glares back at the chairman, telling him his secrets are none of his business. Langley's grin turns predatory. He tells the kid he's dead and lunges across the desk with blinding speed. The air whistles as the S-rank moves to strike. Pluto reacts instantly, activating Death Glare to try and pin him down. At the same time, he calls forth his necromantic soldiers to create a wall between them. He knows he can't win a slugfest in a phone booth. He needs to blow a hole in this sealed room so he can actually maneuver. A massive, flaming eye appears in the air, casting a terrifying debuff over the entire office. But Langley doesn't stop. He tears through the dark energy like it's smoke. He's coming straight for Pluto, his eyes locked on his target with terrifying focus. The system confirms the worst. The S-rank's mental fortitude is so high that the fear debuff lasted for less than 1/100th of a second. Pluto's heart sinks. His strongest control skill didn't even make the guy flinch. His skeletons are being torn apart as Langley charges through them. Pluto can only pray they slow him down for just a moment. Bones and armor fly everywhere as the chairman obliterates the front line. Through the dust and debris, Langley's glowing silhouette looms closer. He's unstoppable. Pluto doesn't quit. He summons another soldier right in front of him. But this isn't a shield. He converts the skeleton into a gunpowder skeleton on the fly. He gives the order to blow the place open. He's turning the office into a bomb. The skeleton rushes forward as a living bomb, catching Victor Langley in a blinding flash. A massive explosion rocks the entire floor, turning the office into a furnace of fire and smoke. Pluto watches the flames, his expression cold. Since the chairman seems to love tanking damage, he's more than happy to provide it. He summons a whole line of gunpowder skeletons, ordering them to unleash their explosive power to their heart's content. Down on the street, the building glows as chain explosions blow out the windows of the top floor. The guards outside look up in shock. The chairman's office is supposed to be soundproof, but this much noise means something insane is happening. They realize the new kid they saw entering must be an elite S-rank to hold his own against the guild's leadership for this long. Inside the smoke-filled office, Pluto is gasping for air. Even with his summons doing the work, the pressure of the fight is exhausting. Suddenly, Victor Langley emerges from the dust, his armor glowing with embers but otherwise unscathed. Pluto's eyes widen. He can't believe the guy walked through a dozen high-level explosions without a scratch. He's completely uninjured. The sheer defensive power of an S-rank bloodline warrior is on another level entirely. Langley wipes a bit of soot from his face and lets out a scoff. It's like he's just getting started. Pluto grits his teeth. If dozens of explosions aren't enough, then he'll just have to drown him in hundreds. He prepares to go all out, dark energy swirling around his scythe as he readies his next summon. But Langley is faster. He lunges through the air, his hand reaching out like a predator's claw. He catches Pluto by the throat, hoisting him off the ground. He demands to know what other secrets the boy is hiding. Pluto can barely breathe, his face contorted in pain as the S-rank's grip tightens. Despite the situation, Pluto just sneers. He's not going to beg for mercy. Instead, he gives the chairman a very clear, one-fingered response. Langley's eyes glow with an intense, golden light. For a second, it looks like he's actually going to kill him. Then, just as quickly as it started, the pressure vanishes. Langley lets him go, and Pluto falls to the floor, coughing. The chairman stands over him, catching his breath. He's not angry anymore, he's impressed. He gives Pluto a genuine smile. He tells the boy that he has officially passed the test. Pluto looks up, confused and still rubbing his neck. He has no idea what he just passed. He realizes the entire life-or-death battle was just an elaborate entrance exam. The room is a mess, but the fight is over. Elder Aaron Crowley, who is watching from the sidelines the whole time, speaks up. He reveals that he was the one who asked the chairman to push Pluto to his limit. He explains that true nature is only revealed in moments of desperation. The guild doesn't need greenhouse geniuses. They need warriors who never retreat. Pluto glares at the old man. He didn't expect someone who looked so kind to play such a dirty trick. Langley turns away, telling Pluto not to hold it against the elder. If a recruit crumbles under pressure, then all the resources they pour into them are wasted. But Pluto's unbending spirit has proven he's worth the investment. Langley is truly impressed by what he saw. The chairman holds out a hand for a formal introduction. He officially introduces himself as Victor Langley, chairman of the Azure Dragon Guild. Pluto takes the hand, keeping his introduction short and simple. He's still wary, but the immediate threat is gone. They shake hands, cementing Pluto's place within the guild's upper circle. Aaron Crowley looks on, satisfied with the results. Langley notes that while Pluto's character is confirmed, his actual combat strength still needs more testing. Pluto is surprised. He asks if they're really planning on going for another round after all that. Langley clarifies that a direct fight between them would be pointless because the power gap is too wide. He has a different proposal in mind. Chairman Victor Langley mentions a level 15 dungeon known as the Goblin Cave. He makes an offer. Solo clear it on Doomsday difficulty, and the Azure Dragon Guild will back him with everything they've got. Elder Crowley looks on, sweating at the sheer madness of the request. Pluto repeats the conditions in his head. Level 15 Doomsday, and he has to do it alone. Victor adds a caveat. Even if he fails, he's in the guild, but he won't get any special support. Without a second thought, Pluto accepts the mission. The chairman smiles, hoping the kid's power actually matches his confidence. As Pluto walks out, he recalls that doomsday monsters are supposedly way stronger than the gold tier. The dungeon is 4 levels above him, which is a bit tricky, but he needs this proof of worth. Back in the office, Crowley asks the chairman if the conditions are a bit too harsh. He points out that even at level 12, it took him a 4-man party and heavy injuries just to barely clear it. Victor isn't moved. If Pluto is just average, then investing guild resources is meaningless. He wants to find and raise the absolute strongest professional of this era. Pluto finally arrives at the rugged entrance of the Goblin Cave. He's at peak physical condition, and his MP is fully recovered from his earlier meeting. He stares down the dark tunnel, ready to take on the Doomsday Challenge. Inside, the skulls of a massive undead army begin to glow with purple light. A swirling red aura fills the entrance as Pluto steps into the dungeon. Other hunters nearby are losing it, watching a student walk into the cave by himself. They think he's suicidal, since no one under level 15 has ever solo cleared this place on Doomsday. Inside the dark cave, Pluto remembers the textbooks describing goblins as exceptionally brutal. 2 glowing yellow eyes suddenly lock onto him from the shadows. Rustling sounds echo off the walls as the first group of monsters moves in. A pack of tusked green goblins emerges from the dark, cackling and brandishing clubs. There are nearly 100 of them, so he pulls out his scythe to start the work. He activates his summon skill, bringing forth a massive tide of necromantic soldiers. He gives the order to drown the monsters in a sea of bones. The skeletons clash with the front line, and the system starts spamming EXP notifications. The experience multipliers in a Doomsday dungeon are absolutely insane. At this rate, clearing the dungeon will easily push him to the next level. The goblins at the entrance are completely wiped out in minutes. With the path clear, Pluto decides it's time to push deeper into the cave. He notes that his summon range is only 16 feet, which limits his options. He smiles, thinking how easy it would be if he could just stand back and watch his army sweep everything. He follows closely behind as his soldiers push further into the jagged cavern. A skeletal soldier slices through another elite goblin, earning him another 1,000 points. The way has been light on enemies so far, and he's already nearly finished. But he knows the chairman wouldn't have set up a test that was this easy to pass. Suddenly, a massive boom echoes from the darkness ahead. The ground starts rumbling violently, shaking loose rocks from the cave's ceiling. The vibration is massive. Something big is finally coming. Pluto doesn't hesitate. He orders his soldiers to charge and meet the threat head-on. A skeletal warrior is smashed into pieces by a massive force. Pluto is stunned by the sudden power, watching his summons get obliterated in a single hit. He's never seen his soldiers shattered like this before. He knows immediately this has to be the dungeon boss. The ground shakes with each heavy footstep of the approaching giant. Pluto smirks, complimenting the big guy on his impressive entrance. The Doomsday boss reveals itself, a level 10 colossal goblin. Pluto thinks about using his gunpowder skeletons, but the giant is moving way too fast. He orders some of his soldiers to pin the boss down while he prepares the conversion. The rest of his skeletal army rushes forward to draw the giant's attention. The colossal goblin swings its massive, spiked club, crushing several skeletons at once. While the boss is occupied, Pluto activates his conversion skill to create gunpowder skeletons. The giant's eye glows a menacing red as it realizes what's happening. It lets out a deafening roar that echoes throughout the entire cavern. Pluto is shocked that the monster managed to spot him amidst the chaos. A massive explosion of dust and rocks fills the area as the giant strikes. The goblin lets out another furious roar, its tusks bared in a snarl. Pluto immediately activates his nether form to phase through the lethal impact. He catches his breath, knowing he'd be dead twice over without that skill. He stares back at the giant with a cold smile, ready to take his turn. His eye glows with an intense red light as he unleashes his death glare. The massive goblin is instantly paralyzed, forced into a state of pure terror. Pluto tells the monster it's nothing but ingredients on his cutting board. He declares himself the chef as his explosive barrels start to glow. He gives a final chilling smile. Then he announces that the feast is about to begin. A series of massive explosions rips through the cavern floor. The goblin boss is consumed by the blast, unable to move or defend itself. The giant finally falls, granting Pluto a massive 12,000 points of EXP. Pluto is surprised the boss went down so easily, as he was expecting a long battle of attrition. He checks his stats and sees he's still only at level 11, halfway through the bar. A strange feeling starts to settle in as he looks around the empty cavern. Usually, a notification pops up saying the challenge was successful, telling him to exit. But there's nothing this time, which means the job isn't finished yet. His eyes widen as the realization hits. This dungeon has multiple bosses. He remembers from his studies that some dungeons require every boss to fall for a true clearance. There's definitely another one waiting for him deeper in the cave. Elite goblin guards start appearing from the shadows, blocking the path forward. Pluto notes that elite monsters are popping up everywhere now. He gives the order to plow right through them without stopping. A wall of text shows a constant stream of elite goblins being taken down by his soldiers. The number of elites is spiking, which means they're finally close to the final stage. A deafening roar echoes through the cavern, shaking the very air. Pluto stares ahead, his expression grim. Those cries can only belong to the dungeon boss. The shadow of a massive creature looms in the distance. Pluto realizes the previous wave was just a small fraction of the threat. Goblin warriors let out screeching cries as they prepare for the slaughter. A massive goblin boss pauses, sensing an intruder in its domain. The creature's voice is a low, guttural snarl as it spots the human. Pluto's eyes narrow in disbelief. He didn't expect to face 3 bosses at once. 3 towering figures emerge from the darkness, accompanied by a horde of 100 minions. Pluto checks his remaining energy. His MP is down to nearly half after the previous skirmishes. The boss's maw opens wide, shrieking a command for its subordinates to kill. The earth trembles as the giant goblin charges forward, intent on devouring the intruder. Pluto doesn't back down. He orders his skeletal soldiers to meet the charge head-on. The cavern erupts into chaos as the 2 armies clash in a flurry of blades and bones. One of the bosses swings its immense spiked club through the air with terrifying force. The club strikes the ground with a thunderous impact, pulverizing everything in its path. A lone skeleton warrior stands its ground against a goblin, shield raised high. An explosion of dust and debris fills the area as more summons are shattered. Pluto watches the carnage. The goblins are so savage they've begun striking their own kind in their frenzy. The gap in power is staggering. His basic soldiers are being wiped out instantly. He's halfway to his next level. He knows that leveling up is his only chance to restore his magic. Pluto's eye glows with a dangerous red light. If he runs out of MP now, he's a dead man. He decides to go all in, channeling the last of his energy into a final, decisive move. The goblin bosses stop in their tracks, sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Pluto calls upon his most potent ally, a dark silhouette appearing at his side. Archer, the Hexi marksman, manifests with a glowing blue bow and eyes like burning embers. Pluto commands him to focus fire, watching his MP drain even faster. One goblin boss is gripped by the fear status effect as Pluto targets him first. Skeletons swarm over the massive creature, hacking at its thick hide. Pluto activates his conversion skill, turning his fallen soldiers into living bombs. A massive explosion engulfs the second boss, fire and smoke filling the chamber. More gunpowder skeletons detonate in rapid succession, tearing into the giant's flesh. The second colossal goblin falls, granting Pluto a massive boost in experience. He's almost at the threshold. Just one more kill and he'll reach level 12. Archer condenses a magic arrow, glowing with a powerful surge of mana, but unleashing the shot completely drains the last of Pluto's fragile mana reserves. Pluto drops to one knee, his MP completely depleted. The dark energy around him flickers and dies. Sweat pours down his face. Without magic, he's vulnerable. The final goblin boss looms over him like a harbinger of doom. Pluto looks up, the giant's shadow swallowing him whole. He watches as the creature raises its weapon for the killing blow. With a final desperate shout, he calls out to his marksman. Archer releases one last arrow of pure blue energy, a streak of light in the darkness. The projectile pierces through the boss's throat, spraying dark blood across the floor. The system confirms another colossal goblin's defeat, awarding Pluto 12,500 experience points. A massive shockwave from the explosion ripples through the cave as Pluto achieves level 12. The remaining goblin boss slams its heavy club into the ground, creating deep fissures in the stone. A speck of light flashed from within the thick cloud of dust. Pluto let out a sigh of relief, realizing he had just escaped death by a hair's breadth from that crushing blow. His body began to emit a ghostly white light, as he barely managed to trigger his nether form just in the nick of time. The giant goblin snarls in frustration, its weapon trembling as it realizes its prey has escaped certain death. Now transformed into his ethereal nether form, Pluto stands atop the boss's discarded weapon, relishing his narrow escape. With his mana significantly restored from the level up, Pluto's eyes burn with a predatory red light. The air around him crackles with dark energy as he declares that it's now his turn to attack. The once menacing goblin is suddenly paralyzed by a soul-deep fear, sweat dripping from its face. Pluto stands dwarfed by the massive creature, but his presence is overwhelming as he gives Archer the command to kill. Archer, the Hexi marksman, dutifully responds, drawing back his glowing energy bow to its limit. A single powerful arrow streaks through the air, piercing the boss's throat and felling the giant instantly. Watching the beast collapse, Pluto is genuinely surprised by the sheer destructive potential of his evolved soldier. He observes Archer closely, concluding that his evolved summons are far superior to standard monsters of the same level. Deep in thought, Pluto realizes he must be highly selective with his few remaining evolution slots to build the ultimate legion. The system window details the removal of the evolution lock, allowing his soldiers to permanently absorb the power of their enemies. Facing the remaining goblin minions, Pluto sees them trembling in terror as the system confirms he has 4 evolutions left. He watches the pathetic creatures with cold eyes, viewing them not as living beings, but as fuel for his own progression. With a single word, Pluto commands his skeletal army to sweep forward and eliminate the remaining survivors. Archer is ready to fire again, his bow aimed at the scattering minions. Pluto gently places a hand on the marksman's arm, telling him to conserve his power and let the basic soldiers handle the rest. Resting a large, purple-bladed scythe against his shoulder, Pluto reflects on the heavy mana cost of Archer's signature moves. He looks at his mana pool, understanding that he'll need to find more efficient ways to sustain a larger army as he evolves more soldiers. Pluto looks over the battlefield, realizing his current mana pool is way too small for what he's trying to do. An elite goblin drops, netting him another 1,000 experience points. The dungeon clear notice pops up, and Pluto realizes he just wiped out over 100 mobs and 4 bosses in one go. Light bursts from the fallen enemies as the loot starts dropping. It's harvest time. Outside the dungeon, a couple of level 13 hunters are catching their breath, complaining about how hard a level 9 doomsday difficulty actually hits. One of them looks back at the cave entrance, wondering if that solo student is still alive. He figures the kid is either dead or already snuck out the back way. Suddenly, a massive bell begins to chime from the dungeon entrance. The hunters freeze. 1 chime means a record was broken, but 3 chimes means a world record was just shattered. They can't believe it, a world record in a place like this. They rush toward the cave, curious to see what kind of elite team just pulled that off. A global system message appears for everyone. Pluto has solo cleared the Goblin Cave on Doomsday difficulty for the first time in history. The crowd starts panicking, realizing the person who did it was that lone student. People start pushing to get to the front, speculating if the record breaker is some high-level warrior or a genius mage. A figure starts to emerge from the swirling energy of the dungeon portal. Pluto walks out looking completely unimpressed, annoyed that all his loot drops are for tank and warrior classes. His inventory is packed with high-tier gear, but not a single piece is useful for his own class. He stops, noticing something is off with the atmosphere outside. He finds a massive group of hunters just staring at him in dead silence. Pluto is genuinely confused by all the attention. He tries to walk through the crowd, but the noise level immediately spikes as everyone starts yelling. They're in shock that the global record breaker is just a kid. The hunters are disappointed. He looks so delicate, and one guy's dreams of seeing a legendary beauty are completely crushed. Pluto wonders what the hell these people are even talking about. Others don't care how he looks. They're just hyped that he broke a world record. He gets swarmed by recruiters and healers shoving phones in his face, begging him to join their party or guild. It's way too loud for his taste, so he decides he needs to find a quiet spot. He bolts away, still confused as to why everyone is looking at him like he's an alien. After finally shaking the crowd, he pulls out his phone. It's time to call Elder Crowley and let him know the test is finished. Back at Azure Dragon headquarters, Elder Crowley is arguing with Chairman Langley about the safety of the mission. Crowley warns that if they lose a talent like Pluto, it'll be a disaster for the whole country. Langley sighs, finally asking Crowley what he thinks they should do. Crowley suggests letting the kid take at least one healer into the dungeon to minimize the risk. The chairman agrees that losing a genius like that to a test would be regrettable. He grants permission for Pluto to bring one healer along, but makes it clear that's the absolute limit. Crowley accepts the decision. He knows how impatient Pluto can be, and realizes he needs to call him before he tries to rush in without any help. His phone starts ringing. It's Pluto calling him first. Langley watches closely as Crowley picks up. Crowley tells Pluto that the chairman has cleared him to take a support class along for the run. Pluto, standing by his cracked phone, gets ready to break the news that the job is already done. Elder Crowley is frozen in shock, barely able to process what he's hearing over the phone. Chairman Victor Langley looks up from his paperwork, sensing the tension in the room. Crowley stammers out the news. Pluto didn't just clear the dungeon, he set a world record on doomsday difficulty. Langley slams his hands on the desk, his eyes wide with genuine interest. The chairman demands the phone immediately, wanting to speak with the kid himself. Crowley hands it over as Pluto asks if he's still there. Langley takes over the call, asking Pluto point-blank if he actually passed the test. Pluto confirms it calmly, recognizing the chairman's voice. A grin spreads across Langley's face. Pluto exceeded even his highest expectations. He tells Pluto they have important matters to discuss in person. Pluto walks through the city, offering to head straight to guild headquarters. Langley stops him, having already picked out a more prestigious meeting spot. He invites him to Sunview Restaurant in Aurora City at 8 tonight. Sunview is the most elite spot in the country, reserved only for top-tier pros and billionaires. Pluto arrives in a suit, feeling a bit out of place since he's the first one there. He checks his pockets and realizes he only has 10 gold coins on him. He really should have sold that loot first. He takes a breath to steady his nerves, figuring a restaurant can't be scarier than a dungeon boss. He walks toward the entrance, trying his best to look like he belongs there. The hostess greets him and asks for his reservation details. When he mentions room 1, her eyes go wide with surprise. Pluto finds the verification process a bit excessive, as she asks to see his status panel. She checks the data, level 12 Necromancer, everything checks out. She watches him walk in, stunned that a kid like him was personally invited to the VIP room by the chairman. She can't help but wonder just who this Pluto really is. Inside, Adrian spots him from a nearby table and starts mocking him loudly. A manager steps in to see if there's an issue, while Pluto ignores the annoying pest. Adrian keeps going, calling Pluto poor trash and lecturing him about the price of private rooms. The manager cuts him off immediately, warning Adrian to watch his mouth around a VIP guest. Adrian is dumbfounded, unable to believe Pluto could ever be considered a VIP. He bursts out laughing, telling the manager that Pluto is just an orphan from the slums. He gets in Pluto's face, mocking him for acting like guild royalty when he's just a candidate. Pluto's dark aura starts to flare, filling the air with a sudden chill. Adrian flinches, reminding Pluto that combat is strictly forbidden inside the restaurant. The manager panics, begging Pluto to calm down before he loses his job. Pluto stares through him, ghosts of fallen enemies swirling around his form. The manager is terrified, convinced a fight is about to break out right in front of him. Pluto gives a cold smile, saying he just wants to show his old classmate something. He summons a spectral blue bow, asking Adrian if the weapon looks familiar. Adrian's face turns pale as he recognizes it. That's Cedric's bow. Pluto bluntly tells him the assassin is dead and dares Adrian to try any more dirty tricks. Adrian is shaking in his seat, horrified that Pluto actually killed Cedric. The necro energy continues to pulse from Pluto's hand as he asserts total dominance. Satisfied with the look on Adrian's face, Pluto turns to the waiter and asks to be shown to the private room. Adrian is spiraling into a rage, unable to believe that a mere prospect has been given a private room or that he managed to kill a level 18 expert like Cedric. As Pluto walks away without a second glance, Adrian screams out his name in a desperate, final attempt to reclaim some power. Pluto's eyes remain cold and indifferent, refusing to give his former classmate any more satisfaction. Adrian continues his frantic shouting, declaring that Azure Dragon isn't the only guild in the country and that Pluto isn't safe. Suddenly, a massive hand grips his shoulder, and a deep voice asks if he is intentionally belittling the Azure Dragon Guild. Enraged and startled, Adrian summons a heavy battle axe, demanding to know who has the nerve to touch him. He swings the weapon blindly, his face twisted in a mask of pure, unbridled fury. The axe is stopped dead in its tracks by the spear of a bronze soldier, the impact sending sparks flying across the restaurant. Adrian freezes, recognizing the summon and realizing he has made a catastrophic mistake. Aaron Crowley looms behind his summon, coldly listing off Adrian's offenses, from slandering the guild to assaulting the vice-chairman. Adrian's weapon clanks to the floor as he pathetically stammers out an apology, claiming he didn't know who was behind him. Crowley's eyes glow with blue energy, his patience exhausted by the boy's arrogant and dangerous behavior. Desperate, Adrian tries to hide behind the restaurant's rules, shouting that even the vice-chairman can't break the no-combat policy. Ignoring the scene, the waiter calmly informs Pluto that Chairman Langley is waiting and asks him to follow. Pluto follows the staff through the dining hall, leaving Adrian to face the consequences of his actions. Earlier that evening, Adrian had been sitting at the same table, enjoying a high-end steak while waiting for news of Pluto's demise. He was annoyed that Cedric hadn't replied to his messages, assuming the assassin was just too ashamed to admit a delay. The sound of approaching footsteps catches his attention, and he looks up with a look of bored entitlement. His mouth hangs open in shock as he sees Pluto walk into the restaurant, alive and completely unharmed. Quickly recovering his arrogance, Adrian decides that if he can't match Pluto's leveling speed, he'll crush him with wealth and status. He slams his hand onto the table, eager to begin the confrontation that would eventually lead to his own public humiliation. Aaron Crowley looks at the arrogant kid and repeats his word back to him. Rules. Adrian starts to realize he might have messed up big time. Victor Langley gets right in his face. He's the one who makes the rules here. His fist starts glowing with intense yellow lightning. A single snap of his fingers unleashed a terrifying shockwave that tore the entire dining hall apart. Adrian goes flying straight through the floor-to-ceiling glass. Victor looks down at the wreckage and makes it clear. Pluto is a VIP, and anyone who messes with him is dead meat. Down on the street, people look up in horror as a body hits the pavement. Adrian is out cold, foaming at the mouth on the asphalt. High above, the shattered window is just a jagged hole in the side of the skyscraper. Victor and Aaron walk back inside as the crowd finally recognizes the heavy hitters from the Azure Dragon Guild. Everyone's whispering now, wondering how a student in black could be a VIP for someone as powerful as Chairman Langley. Pluto just watches them go, taking in the raw power play. The restaurant manager rushes over, bowing and scraping to the guild leaders. Victor tells him they're heading to the private room. He gestures back at the broken glass and tells the guy to fix the mess. The manager doesn't hesitate. He promises to take care of everything immediately. He starts barking orders at the staff to evacuate the crowd and get an ambulance for the kid outside. Aaron looks over at Pluto. He's still impressed that the kid cleared a doomsday dungeon all by himself. He notes that Pluto doesn't even have a single scratch on his clothes. He tells them to hurry up before the food gets cold. Pluto didn't expect the amiable vice chairman to have such a savage streak. Aaron tells Pluto that he and Victor were right about his potential. Pluto plays it cool, but he knows he nearly died in there if it wasn't for that last-second level up. He admits his MP is completely drained, and he feels hollowed out. They stop in front of a pair of massive, ornate double doors. Aaron tells him to rest easy. By the time they're done, his MP will be overflowing. The doors swing open to reveal a massive dining hall with a feast fit for a king. Pluto is stunned. The presentation alone screams expensive. Aaron claps him on the shoulder and tells him to pick any seat he likes. They sit down, and Victor tells him not to be shy. Aaron explains that he ordered every buff dish the kitchen can make for professional hunters. He points out special meals cooked by life support class professionals. These aren't just for taste. They grant massive boosts like accelerated MP regen and speed. Pluto listens intently as the old man lists off the benefits. Aaron offers him a piece of blue-striped demon beef tenderloin. Pluto takes a bite, and he can immediately feel his dried-out mana source roaring back to life. Aaron warns him the effect is temporary, but the boost is significant. He hands him an explosive red pepper to kick his strength up a notch. Pluto doesn't need to be told twice. He starts inhaling dishes for agility, defense, and stamina. He's stuffing his face with everything on the table. He finishes the whole spread and leans back, feeling like a superhuman. He's completely stuffed, but with all those buffs active, he's ready for anything. Victor Langley wipes his mouth and gets straight to the point. Lunch is over, and it's time for business. He starts with the good news. Pluto aced the test and is officially a member of the Azure Dragon Guild. But there's a catch. They're keeping his membership a secret to minimize his public exposure. He warns Pluto that great power attracts great envy, and some people might even try to kill him just to eliminate the threat. Pluto simply nods, understanding the logic behind staying in the shadows. Victor shifts the mood and asks if the kid even knows who their real enemies are. Pluto mentions nations C and Z, who have always been hostile towards their country. Victor explains that those nations will stop at nothing, even sending assassins to hunt down their elites. Aaron Crowley adds that if those rivals found out about a one-man army like Pluto, they'd do everything in their power to eradicate him. Pluto clenches his fist, frustrated that humans are still busy igniting wars while monsters are out there. Aaron notices a shift in the air. For the first time, he feels a wave of genuine killing intent coming off Pluto. He tells the boy that while human wars are dangerous, they aren't actually the deadliest threat. Pluto is taken aback, wondering what could possibly be worse than a global conflict. Victor leans forward, slamming his hand on the table. He asks if Pluto is ready for the real truth of this world. Pluto stares back, locked in and waiting for the answer. Victor describes their world as nothing more than a vast hunting ground for another race, just waiting for the harvest. Pluto is shocked by the imagery and asks for an explanation. Victor breaks it down. There are two types of rifts. One is the blessing rift Pluto just cleared, and the other is the calamity rift. Pluto asks what the actual difference between the two is. Victor holds up 3 fingers to list the major distinctions. First, blessing rifts only open with a key, appearing exactly where the user wants. They're predictable. Calamity rifts, however, spawn at complete random, anywhere from mountains to the middle of a city. Second, the monsters are different. Blessing monsters match the hunter's level to keep it balanced. In a calamity rift, everything is random, and at equal levels, those monsters are far stronger than anything in a blessing rift. Pluto realizes the power difference is massive between the two. Victor points out the third and most critical factor, the direction of the rift. In standard dungeons, humans choose to enter, but the monsters inside can never leave. But with a calamity rift, the beasts can actually cross over into the human world. Pluto is visibly shaken by the thought of an uncontrollable invasion. Victor repeats himself, for those beasts, their world is just a playground for a slaughter. Pluto asks if these random rifts are the true threat the chairman mentioned earlier. Victor says scattered rifts are just a nuisance. The real nightmare lies elsewhere. Every 10 years, a colossal rift over a kilometer-high tears open the sky. A demon king descends through it with an army to massacre humanity. These global disasters are known as rift wars. Victor drops the bombshell. The next war is coming in exactly 1 year. Pluto is floored. He can't believe it so soon and that it's not even mentioned in textbooks. Aaron explains that governments hide the truth to prevent mass panic, suppressing all information. Pluto connects the dots instantly. He asks if their own country is the battlefield for the next war. Both Victor and Aaron are stunned by how quickly he deduced the truth. Victor asks how he could possibly have known that. Pluto looks him in the eye. He can sense the deep, bone-chilling anxiety they're both desperately trying to hide. Victor Langley's expression softens slightly as he admits that Pluto is incredibly perceptive. He's surprised that a mere student could see right through a facade he thought was perfectly maintained. Pluto looks down at his cup, the ripples in the liquid reflecting his own internal reflections. "Because I'm too familiar with that feeling," he mutters. He recalls the trauma of facing a brutal war, where one has to force themselves to stay calm despite their body's instinctive trembling. Victor is momentarily confused by Pluto's quiet comment, but the boy quickly brushes it off. Pluto refocuses on the strategy, asking how the guild could possibly know the location of a rift war in advance. Victor reveals the existence of the Oculus Guild, a neutral international organization that operates above national borders. They specialize in recruiting prophetic professionals from across the globe, trading visions for massive profit. The Oculus can pinpoint a colossal rift 2 years before it opens, giving nations a desperate window to prepare. Pluto immediately spots the weakness. If their nation is focused on the monsters, what's stopping their human rivals from attacking? Aaron Crowley intervenes, explaining that a universal, ironclad rule was established to prevent exactly that. During a 5-year window surrounding a rift war, the host country is off-limits to all human aggression. Any violator becomes an enemy of all mankind. Pluto finally understands why the usual border tensions have suddenly gone silent. Victor adds that most nations are far too busy hoarding resources for their own survival to bother with traditional warfare anyway. Then Pluto asks a question that stops the room. Have we ever tried to cross through a rift to reach the demon beast's world? Victor stares at him, his yellow eyes wide with a mix of shock and disbelief at the boy's audacity. He warns Pluto not to even dream of such a thing. Just surviving the onslaught of a demon king is a miracle in itself. He recalls the last war, where Azure Dragon suffered 70% casualties and nearly ceased to exist as a guild. Pluto realizes he was being naive about the overwhelming scale of the threat they face. But Victor looks at him with renewed hope. That was the past, he says. With you, everything changes. He believes that Pluto's unique abilities could be the key to turning the tide of the entire war. With his power, they could potentially double their effectiveness and face the rift with a real chance at victory. The chairman declares that Pluto now holds the destiny of their entire nation in his hands. He promises the guild's unconditional support for the next year of preparation. Elder Crowley, bring it out. Aaron Crowley responds immediately, placing a sleek black briefcase on the table with a heavy thud. Pluto looks on with curiosity as Aaron explains these are welcome gifts from the Azure Dragon Guild. The locks disengage with a sharp click, revealing the treasures hidden inside. Pluto is stunned to see a variety of legendary gear, all seemingly intended for him. Aaron presents the first item, the Phoenix Eye, a legendary quality artifact that is considered the chairman's own treasure. The item's stats appear in a glowing screen, revealing its incredible power to teleport across any distance. Aaron points out that most legendary gear has strict level requirements, but this one can be equipped at level 1. Pluto can't believe the value of such an item. It's a game changer for his mobility and safety. Victor explains that only 6 of these exist in the entire world, reserved for the chairmen of the major guilds. It's a tool for emergency assembly when facing national-level threats, represented by the Golden Phoenix sigil. Pluto asks if the chairman is really okay with giving up such a vital piece of equipment. Victor simply crosses his arms and smiles, revealing that Azure Dragon was granted 2 Phoenix Eyes due to their superior strength. He explains that for security, Pluto's eye is linked only to his own. "Only I can teleport to your side," he adds firmly. Pluto realizes the weight of the gift. He essentially has one of the world's strongest hunters as a personal guardian. Aaron then presents the second gift, the Moonlight Ring, a legendary piece from his own youth. The ring provides a massive boost to mana capacity and regenerates energy even faster under a full moon. Pluto slides the ring onto his finger, feeling a surge of magical power immediately take hold. A notification screen confirms his mana has jumped from 150 to 250, a nearly double increase in his potential. Aaron Crowley explains that as a caster, Pluto will need a massive pool of MP, and the Moonlight Ring is the perfect solution. He warns the boy that the ring has been his constant companion for over a decade, and he will be furious if Pluto loses it. Pluto promises that the ring will stay safe for as long as he is breathing, sensing the weight of the elder's gift. Finally, Aaron reveals the third gift, Blessing Keys. Pluto's eyes light up, recognizing them as tools for challenging special rifts to grind levels. But as Pluto reaches for them, Aaron snatches them back, catching the young man off guard. He explains that Blessing Keys are incredibly rare, with the entire Azure Dragon Guild only possessing 9 of them. They are not to be used lightly. Pluto asks for the proper time to use them, and Aaron explains that higher-level Blessing Rifts offer superior experience and high-quality gear. He hands them back, advising Pluto to save them for when his leveling slows down or he reaches a higher tier to maximize their potential. Since the Blessing Rifts are off the table for now, Pluto asks the chairman and elder for any other recommendations to level up quickly. Aaron responds with a confident smirk, telling him that they already have the perfect grinding spot picked out. The destination is the Apex Dungeon Hall, a massive facility jointly managed by the 5 major guilds of the nation. Pluto has heard of its reputation for having the highest difficulty and the richest rewards in the entire country. He's eager to get started, his excitement palpable. "I can't wait already," he exclaims. Aaron holds up a gleaming crystal, explaining that this teleportation tool will take him directly to any Apex Hall. He suggests starting at Hall number 3, which is tailored for new recruits from the major guilds and ranges from levels 10 to 25. Pluto feels like he's in peak condition, ready to tackle any challenge the dungeons can throw at him. Victor Langley's expression turns serious as he tells Pluto to be extra careful once he arrives at the hall. He warns the boy to stay vigilant, not just against the monsters, but against the other professional hunters within the facility. The people in the Apex Halls are the nation's elite, often arrogant and likely to target a new face like Pluto. Victor asks Pluto to avoid real combat with them as a personal request, but his reasoning is unexpected. He explains that the other recruits would stand absolutely no chance against Pluto's power, and he wants to avoid a one-sided slaughter. Pluto sweat drops, promising the chairman that he'll do his best to avoid any unnecessary conflict. Victor advises that if a fight becomes unavoidable, Pluto should simply show them the golden teleportation crystal as a warning. Even the greenest recruits of the 5 major guilds understand the immense weight and authority that crystal carries. Business is settled and the gifts are delivered. It's time for Pluto to start the grind. He's equipped with the Phoenix Eye and the Moonlight Ring, which gives his MP a massive boost. He looks ready to get back to it. After thanking Victor and Aaron, he activates his teleportation crystal. A massive beam of blue energy shoots into the night sky over the city. The kid vanishes from the dining room in a flash of light. The two guild leaders watch the spot where their VIP just stood. Aaron is already looking forward to seeing how much the boy will grow by their next meeting. Victor turns his focus to something else, clearing the trash off the kid's path. Aaron knows exactly who he's talking about, the people behind the assassination attempt. Victor confirms it. His intel already pointed him to the source. It's the same brat Victor just launched through a window earlier. Aaron finally gets why a man as refined as Victor would lose his temper over a youngster. If they hadn't been in a crowded lobby, Victor would have gone for a lethal blow instead of just a punch. He asks if the background check on the kid is done. Victor goes over the file. Adrian is a classmate and an rank hunter, but his father is just some local tycoon. The real trouble is his older brother, a captain in the White Tiger Guild's elite squad. Their chairman, Tyler Brown, is known for being short-tempered and overprotective of his members. Picking a fight with Adrian's brother could turn into a full-scale clash between the two giant guilds. Victor doesn't care about a small-time captain. Pluto is the future of their entire nation. He declares that even if the White Tiger chairman showed up personally, he wouldn't stop the purge. The air in the room turns heavy as Victor makes his choice. He orders the immediate apprehension of Adrian Blackwood. And if the brat resists arrest, he's to be executed on the spot. Since this involves Pluto's safety, Aaron agrees to handle the job personally. Victor wants the operation done loud and proud in the name of the Azure Dragon Guild. Aaron prepares a magic circle to head out and handle the business. He realizes Victor wants to draw all the hatred from the Blackwoods and White Tiger onto the guild itself. Pluto isn't mature enough to handle that kind of heat, so Azure Dragon will bear the danger for him. Meanwhile, Pluto arrives at a massive hall filled with hunters. The place is packed with people shouting for tanks and healers to join their dungeon runs. It's a huge operation, with a massive hologram tracking the latest dungeon clears. Pluto checks his status. He's level 12 and needs to level up fast to unlock more restrictions. He doesn't want to waste time testing dungeons one by one to find the best EXP. A girl in a witch hat suddenly pops up, calling him handsome and asking if he's new. She introduces herself as Layla Shaw, a part-time guide for the area. Pluto cuts straight to the chase and asks what the catch is. She's got a simple rate. One question costs 1 gold coin. He tosses her a coin and asks which dungeon will give him the absolute maximum experience. Layla is surprised by how serious he is about the absolute part. She explains that his level limits his options. He can't enter a dungeon more than 3 levels higher than him. Since he's level 12, the highest he can go is the Abyss Spider Nest at level 15. Layla warns him that the Abyss Spider Nest is crawling with mobs that can swarm a player from every angle. It's a grind to fight through, and putting together a proper party usually takes forever. Pluto casually tells her he doesn't need to wait, which catches the guide off guard. She assumes he already has a squad, since nobody in their right mind would take on the nest alone. She points toward a group that specializes in this specific dungeon. They just came back after breaking a record, but the sight isn't exactly inspiring. The party is a bloody mess, with members screaming for healers to treat their gruesome injuries. One guy is even shouting about a spider eating his eye. Layla uses them as a warning, showing him that even a near-perfect 5-man team barely makes it out alive. She asks if he really thinks his own squad can do any better. Pluto just repeats that he doesn't have a squad. He's going in solo. Layla's jaw drops. She can't believe what she's hearing. The whole hall goes silent as everyone turns to look at the crazy kid. He doesn't see what the big deal is, but the guide is already apologizing for shouting so loud. A group of hunters nearby starts laughing their heads off. They can't believe a pathetic C-rank necromancer thinks he can solo the spider nest, and one woman even jokes that dungeons don't come in kindergarten difficulty. Pluto tells Layla not to worry about it, as he's used to people underestimating him. She begs him one last time to reconsider, telling him he's just going to get himself killed. He just thanks her for the info and keeps walking. The dungeon stats are no joke. Over 1,000 mobs with a recommended party size of 10 high-level hunters. The Doomsday records for this place are impressive, with the top team clearing it in 46 minutes. 1,000 monsters. Most people would be terrified, but Pluto's eyes widen with excitement. That many mobs means the EXP yield will be insane, and he's desperate to level up. He decides to start on hero difficulty just to test the waters, figuring he should play it a bit safe for his first time facing a mob count this high. The injured hunters watch him go, convinced he's either blind or just plain brain damaged. One S-rank hunter sneers that even he wouldn't dream of soloing the nest, and the kid won't last 5 minutes. Pluto steps through the portal and into the dark, web-choked cavern. The air is heavy with the stench of rot, and the sound of thousands of tiny legs scuttling echoes through the silence. He keeps a calm expression as he surveys the disgusting environment. With a swift motion, he summons his legion of necromantic soldiers. The spiders are already closing in, their rustling getting louder. Pluto doesn't mind, they're just delivering themselves to him. He looks at the wave of monsters and calls it perfect. With a pointed finger, he orders his skeletons to wipe out every last spider in the cave. A skeleton soldier leaps into the fray, blade drawn. It carves through the swarm, and the EXP notifications start flooding in immediately. But the spiderlings are tiny and numerous, quickly crawling up the skeleton's legs. Pluto watches as his soldier gets covered in the little pests and loses its ability to move. The spiders start chewing through the bone, making it clear that standard swords aren't the best tool here. He admits they're a bit more annoying than he expected, but he's got more than one trick up his sleeve. He activates a conversion, and one of his skeletons transforms into a gunpowder skeleton carrying a massive barrel of explosives. A massive explosion rips through the cave, incinerating everything in its path. At 25 EXP per spiderling, one explosion takes out dozens. He figures that clearing this whole cave will give him just as much experience as the Doomsday Goblin Cave did. He snaps his fingers, ready to keep the momentum going. This place is a grinding paradise for someone who can summon an infinite supply of walking bombs. He starts converting his entire front line into explosives. Boom after boom echoes through the tunnels as the spiders are blown to bits. The notifications are a constant stream of progress. This one bombing run alone is enough to push Pluto straight to the next level. He's now level 13. As always, he dumps every single stat point into his MP. Right now, his mana pool is the only thing that matters. Pluto reviews his updated status window. At level 13, his MP has reached 255 thanks to his new gear. He notes that the Moonlight Ring provided a significant boost, but he still needs to level up faster to unlock the next restriction removal. Deep in the cave, he suspects that each restriction removal is tailored to solve the specific crises he's currently facing. Suddenly, a massive abyss spider drops from the darkness, its multiple green eyes glowing with predatory intent. A thick strand of spider silk shoots toward him, catching him by surprise. He identifies it as an adult abyss spider, a much larger threat than the swarming hatchlings he just bombed. The creature's silk allows it to stay perfectly mobile in the cavern's high reaches. Pluto runs to gain distance, realizing the spider is clinging to a ceiling dozens of meters high, far too high for his ground-bound gunpowder skeletons. A confident smirk plays on his lips as he prepares a summon. He isn't limited to close-range combat anymore. In a swirl of dark, shadowy energy, he calls forth his newly evolved archer. Standing ready, the archer, Hexi Marksman, draws back a shimmering blue energy bow. With a sharp whistle of air, a powerful bolt of energy streaks toward the ceiling. A massive explosion rocks the cavern roof, and a notification confirms the adult spider has been neutralized for a solid 100 EXP. The charred carcass of the giant spider slams into the ground. Pluto is relieved to have a ranged option to handle these aerial threats. However, he knows his Hexi Marksman is capable of much more than just simple, single shots. Gripping his scythe, Pluto prepares for the next wave, telling his evolved soldier not to let him down. They stand together at the edge of a massive pit, looking down at a sea of countless spiders. "This is going to be a bloodbath," Pluto declares. Pluto starts the raid by letting his gunpowder skeletons handle the close-range spiders. One of the bony guys charges in with a massive barrel of explosives held high. A huge blast rocks the cave, and just like that, the first wave is basically vaporized. The fire clears out the remaining stragglers, leaving nothing but charred remains. With the front line handled, Pluto tells his archer to take care of the ones in the distance. Sharp, the Hexi marksman, starts drawing his bow as blue energy crackles to life. He lets one fly, and the arrow splits into multiple streaks of light. The projectiles zoom through the dark, homing in on the sea of glowing eyes ahead. The skill, Magic Arrow Barrage, completely saturates the cavern. It's basically raining magical arrows at this point. Every single one finds its mark, punching right through those spider shells. The whole nest turns into a slaughterhouse as the swarm gets picked apart. Pluto's impressed. The marksman's AoE is just as broken as its single target damage. Only downside is it drains his mana fast. He's already down to about half his pool. But the small fries are finally gone. Now it's time for the real challenge. Deep in the webbing, the massive boss finally wakes up. Outside, some other hunters are keeping track of the time. It's been 20 minutes. The bandaged warrior is convinced the kid is already dead and gone inside. His buddy points out there's no failure notice yet, though he admits it's not looking good. They start wondering if maybe, just maybe, he's actually holding his own in there. The warrior isn't buying it. There's no way a C-rank could handle a swarm like that. Still, his partner can't stop thinking about how confident Pluto looked. He didn't seem like the type to just walk into a death trap for no reason. But even if he cleared the mobs, there's still the monster at the end to deal with. And right on cue, the Abyss Spider Empress reveals herself. A dozen glowing red eyes stare out from the dark, locking onto Pluto. The floor shakes as the massive creature drops down with a deafening crash. From where he's standing, Pluto can practically smell the scent of death coming off her. A giant web strand whipped out from the shadows, aiming right for his head. Pluto just leans back, letting the strike whistle harmlessly pass. One of his skeleton warriors jumps into the fray, swinging a heavy axe. Pluto pulls his scythe, looking completely unfazed by the size of this thing. He tells his crew to give the boss a warm welcome back. Slashes of energy tear through the air as the undead clash with the Empress. The boss isn't going down easy, though, swatting the skeletons away like flies. One of them takes a direct hit to the shield, and the force nearly craters the ground. Explosions continue to rip through the room as the gunpowder skeletons find their mark. Pluto admits she's tough. She's definitely fighting back harder than he thought. Time to freeze her in place. He activates a specialized skill. A giant glowing eye appears in the dark, inflicting a wave of pure fear on the boss. With the Empress finally pinned down, Pluto moves in for the kill. He gives the order to keep the bombardment going until there's nothing left. The gunpowder skeletons deliver the final blow, detonating in a massive explosion that finally takes down the Empress. A system notification confirms the kill, rewarding Pluto with a cool 35,000 experience points. With the boss dead, the threat in the dungeon effectively evaporates into smoke. Pluto notes that soloing higher-level dungeons is the ultimate level-up hack, netting him 2 levels in a single run. He looks over the mountain of loot, realizing his inventory space is starting to become a real issue. Outside, the other hunters are getting restless, wondering what's taking so long. The blonde huntress suggests they stop waiting, convinced the necromancer was never coming back out. His partner agrees, feeling foolish for ever thinking a low rank could pull off a solo clear. He turns to follow the warrior, done with staring at the empty portal. But then a loud chime rings through the hall, stopping him dead in his tracks. It's the dungeon record refresh alert, and he can't believe what he's about to see. The entire room erupts in confusion, as everyone tries to figure out which dungeon just got its record shattered. Someone shouts that it's the Abyss Spider Nest, but the crowd is skeptical since a record was just set there recently. The board updates to show that Pluto just solo cleared a level 15 hero difficulty dungeon in just 22 minutes. A split second later, Pluto steps through the portal as casually as if he'd just gone for a walk. The entire hall falls silent, with one hunter asking the question everyone is thinking: how? Pluto is confused by all the starring, wondering if he's got something on his face. Ling runs up to him, absolutely floored that he actually cleared the nest and broke the record. But a blue-haired rival isn't convinced, shouting that there's no way the story is true. He argues that no necromancer could summon enough skeletons to survive thousands of spiders in 20 minutes. Pluto ignores the noise, wondering if he even knows who this guy is. The skeptic continues his rant, pointing out that necromancers have long cooldowns on their summons. He claims a few gunpowder skeletons wouldn't even make it past the first wave, let alone the boss. He marches right up to Pluto, demanding to know what kind of lie he's trying to sell them. He gets right in Pluto's face, convinced he's hiding some kind of dirty secret. He continues to bark accusations, desperate to prove that the record on the board is a glitch. Pluto looks him in the eye, asking if he's really sure he wants to know the truth. A sudden wave of pressure radiates from Pluto, sending the man stumbling back in shock. The rival is paralyzed with fear, realizing from Pluto's eyes that he's looking at someone who has definitely killed before. He tries to regain his composure, telling himself that Pluto wouldn't dare attack him in a public hall. He tries to shift the focus to guild status, mocking Pluto for being a guildless C-rank. The surrounding hunters join in, questioning how a second-tier class even managed to get inside a prestigious place like Apex Hall. Ling watches from the sidelines, visibly frightened by the escalating tension. The middle-parted hunter finds the attention amusing, feeling a bit of a thrill from having the entire room focused on his every word. The other hunters are curious to see how Pluto will handle being in everyone's crosshairs. Pluto starts by proving his class, summoning a couple of necromantic soldiers for everyone to see. Then he addresses the question of how he got into the hall by pulling out a small, sparkling item. Gasps ripple through the crowd as they recognize the golden teleportation crystal in his hand. The blue-haired rival is left speechless, wondering how a rookie could possibly possess an item reserved for guild elites. Pluto turns his back on them, telling the crowd they can guess all they want, but he doesn't have time for their games. The rival realizes he's way out of his league, understanding that Pluto isn't someone he can mess with. The hunter in the teal tunic is impressed by Pluto's mental strength, noting how he wasn't affected by their insults at all. Pluto reflects on Chairman Victor Langley's advice to keep a low profile, a warning he's already completely ignored. He sighs, wondering if he just has some kind of hidden passive trait that attracts idiots wherever he goes. Putting the drama aside, Pluto focuses on reaching level 15 by selecting the insane Doomsday difficulty for his next run. The portal to the Abyss Spider nest swirls with chaotic energy as he prepares to step back inside. The bandaged warrior in Arkansas long watch him enter, shocked that a solo hunter would choose such a suicidal difficulty. Inside the nest, the environment is even more hostile, with a literal sea of spiders crawling through the dark. Pluto summons his skeletal legion, and they march forward to meet the chattering swarm head-on. Normally, being swarmed by thousands of small monsters would be a death sentence for a necromancer's summon. But Pluto has a specific counter-strategy in mind for this many targets: his gunpowder skeletons. As the spiders crawl over them, the gunpowder skeletons ignite, turning the swarm's numbers against them. A massive explosion rocks the tunnel, vaporizing hundreds of spiders in a single deafening blast. The massive experience payout triggers a level up, finally pushing Pluto to level 15. Reaching the milestone brings another notification. A new restriction has been removed from his class. He reads the new passive ability, Infinite MP Growth, which grants permanent mana for every mana-bearing kill. The scope of this power is staggering. Basically, every monster in the dungeon is now a permanent stat point. Pluto looks at the next wave of spiders, seeing them as nothing more than fuel for his future dominance. He gives a dark grin, realizing that this dungeon has just become his own personal paradise for growth. A giant spider screeches as it drops from the ceiling, but Pluto is already moving. He effortlessly dodges the heavy strike, his improved agility making the monster's speed look like a joke. His skeletal warriors leap into action, their blades cutting through the spider's thick carapace with ease. The sound of metal through chitin fills the cave as another large spider is cleaved down. A notification pops up confirming the mana-bearing target is down, and Pluto feels his mana pool expand. He watches his stats update as his max mana begins its climb toward heights no human should reach. Pluto summons Sharp, his elite skeletal archer, to clear out the long-range threats. Sharp draws back a ghostly string, blue mana flickering around the skeletal hands. With a single release, a barrage of glowing arrows whistles through the air toward the swarm. The magic arrow barrage skill activates, painting the cave in a lethal shower of blue energy. Dozens of spiders are shredded by the arrows, each one contributing to the permanent boost to Pluto's mana. A massive tally appears, over 100 kills in a few seconds, nearly doubling his original mana pool. Pluto is stunned by the efficiency, realizing that this limit-breaking growth is truly insane. He notes that while his maximum capacity is increasing, he still needs to be careful with his current mana levels. He orders Sharp to stand down and conserve energy, as the real challenge is still ahead. Pluto points ahead, letting his gunpowder skeletons take the lead to finish off the remaining lesser mobs. A skeletal bomber carries a huge barrel of explosives into the center of the next cluster. A series of detonations clears the path, the fire illuminating the grim hallway. Outside, the other hunters are still waiting, doubting that anyone could actually clear the doomsday difficulty. The bandaged warrior says a run like this should take at least an hour, even for a top-tier hunter. Only half an hour has passed, yet Pluto is already standing before the massive doomsday empress. He doesn't waste any time, triggering a catastrophic sequence of explosions that engulfs the boss. The smoke clears to reveal Pluto standing alone. The Empress has been completely decimated. The level 17 notification flashes, showing an astronomical gain of 60,000 experience points. Pluto smiles at the results, realizing that soloing the Apex Hall's hardest dungeons is the ultimate shortcut to power. Pluto is impressed by his growth, noting that clearing out the mana-bearing targets has given him a massive permanent boost of 615 max MP. He checks his inventory and realizes it's completely filled with loot from the run, none of which is useful to him right now. Outside, the system alert chimes, announcing to everyone in the hall that another record has been shattered. The bandaged warrior is left speechless, unable to fathom how a solo player could finish Doomsday difficulty in under 40 minutes. The notification confirms that Pluto has solo cleared the Abyss Spider Nest on its highest difficulty in a record-breaking 36. Pluto emerges from the portal, the swirling energy of the dungeon behind him as the crowd gazes at him in awe. Arkansas Long is buzzing with excitement, shouting about how this is the first time anyone has broken 2 solo records in a single day. While the others marvel at his mysterious identity and power, Pluto simply asks about Ling's whereabouts. Seeing Pluto's calm demeanor after such a feat, Arkansas Long feels a surge of inspiration, wanting to someday stand beside him as an equal. Arkansas Long is fired up and ready to head back into the grind, but the bandaged warrior looks like his world has just crumbled. The veteran hunter reflects on the month of preparation he put in and the eye he lost, all for his record to be crushed by a lone rookie in half an hour. Realizing the gap between them is impassable, the bandaged warrior decides that the professional life isn't for him after all. He walks away, already calling his mother to tell her he's coming home to run the family's fishing shop. Pluto finds Ling and asks for directions to the exchange, but she surprisingly refuses any payment for her help. He looks at her with confusion, wondering why she'd turned down a payout after everything they've been through. Ling pulls down the brim of her hat to hide her blushing face, telling him to consider her help a bonus for his incredible performance. Internally, Ling is strategizing, knowing that Pluto is a once-in-a-lifetime talent that she needs to stay close to. She quickly composes herself and offers to personally guide him to the exchange hall. They arrive at the Apex Dungeon Hall's exchange, a grand room filled with weaponry and equipment from various raids. A clerk greets them, asking if they are there to buy or sell, while Pluto prepares to unload his haul. The clerk is unimpressed, assuming that a level 17 necromancer couldn't possibly have anything valuable in his bag late at night. Pluto eyes the small table provided for the transaction and doubts that all his loot will even fit on the surface. The clerk smugly corrects him, explaining that it's a high-end trading platform equipped with a force field to stack items as high as needed. Pluto shrugs and activates his inventory, dark energy swirling around his hand, as he prepares to dump a mountain of gear onto the platform. The exchange clerk leans in, looking for any excuse to look down on Pluto. Pluto just snaps his fingers, and a massive mountain of armor and weapons crashes onto the counter. He looks up at the towering pile with a smug grin. This is what a solo run really looks like. The clerk's face goes completely pale. His eyes are practically popping out of his head as he stares at the loot. He stammers out a question, wondering just how many dungeons a guy has to clear to accumulate this much gear. Pluto tells him straight. Most pros share the loot with a party, but since he grinds solo, he keeps every bit of it. He shrugs it off, calling it luck with the drop rates, but the clerk isn't buying it. He's convinced Pluto must be a young master from some insanely wealthy family. His attitude shifts instantly to full-on suck-up mode, bowing and asking Pluto to come back tomorrow while they appraise it all. Pluto's fine with that. He's about to head out when Ling suggests hitting up the equipment mall next door. Pluto looks at his current stats. His epic gear served its purpose, but it's time for a real upgrade. Ling's excited to show him around and takes the lead. They walk into the mall, which is packed with rows and rows of high-end weaponry. She pulls out the Scythe of Death. It's a rare item specifically built to give a necromancer 1 extra summon. Ling thinks it's god tier for his level, but Pluto just looks at it with a bored expression. He tells her he doesn't need just 1 extra. Soon, he'll be summoning tens of thousands of undead at a time. Ling is floored. She can't wrap her head around just how many skeletons this guy plans on bringing back. She figures he might prefer something else, and points him toward the high-security display cabinets. Inside is an amethyst ring that glows with a faint purple light, promising a 50-point boost to MP. Ling tries her best to sell it, reminding him that necromancers are nothing without their mana. Pluto doesn't even flinch. Compared to the moonlight ring he already has, 50 points is basically pocket change. Besides, with his MP restriction already removed, he can just farm more mana the old-fashioned way. He asks to see something else, leaving Ling completely dumbfounded by his high standards. She can't believe it. He doesn't want more summons, and he's not interested in boosting his mana pool. She's about had it, and finally asks him what exactly he's looking for if none of this is good enough. Pluto doesn't answer. He's staring at something else entirely. A dark, ominous energy is pulsing from a nearby exhibit, making the whole room feel heavy. Pluto starts walking toward it, his feet moving on their own as if the dark mana is calling to him. The shadows swirl around the glass case, flickering like living flames. He stops in front of it, admitting he felt a strange pull the second he walked by. Inside is the Nether King robe. It's a demonic-grade item that lets you sacrifice 100 minions to spawn an elite summon. Ling sees him staring and asks if he's actually thinking about getting a display piece. She explains it's considered useless. No summoner alive can call out 100 minions at once just to kill them all. Even if you were level 100, keeping 100 ordinary soldiers active at the same time is basically a fantasy. Pluto just stares at it, a dark look in his eyes. For anyone else, it's a paperweight, but for him, it's the ultimate battery. He could churn out elite soldiers that are hundreds of times stronger than anything he has now. He realizes this thing was practically made for someone with his specific talents. He looks at the not-for-sale sign and just smirks. He's getting his hands on it one way or another. Ling stares at his face, terrified by the sudden intensity coming off him. He asks her what the deal is with the robe, and why it's just sitting there under glass. She tells him it's a relic from the last Rift War, dropped from a high-level demon beast. But since no one from the major guilds could ever trigger its effect, it's been relegated to being a fancy decoration. Pluto presses his hand against the glass of the display case, feeling a strange pull from the dark energy within. He looks at the Nether King robe, whispering a promise that he'll be back to free it from its glass cage soon. He turns to Ling and asks if there's any way to get his hands on an item that's marked as not for sale. Ling just gives him a look like he's lost his mind. She goes quiet for a second, then admits there might be a loophole, though she's never heard of anyone actually trying it. She explains that Apex Hall holds a massive tournament every year, and the champion gets the ultimate privilege, choosing any item they want as their prize. But there's a catch. Most winners pick the most expensive high-tier gear they can find. Nobody ever been crazy enough to ask for a display-only relic. Pluto just smirks. If it's not explicitly forbidden, then it's fair game. All he has to do is win the whole thing. Ling practically screams at him. She can't believe he's being so casual about the most prestigious competition in the world. She rattles off the sponsors: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Phoenix, Black Tortoise, and Holy Deer, the Big Five. This isn't a playground. It's where the absolute elite of those guilds come to prove they're the best of the best. Ling sighs and rubs her forehead, telling him that standing out among those monsters is harder than trying to climb into heaven itself. Pluto isn't even listening to her discouraged rant. He's already touching the glass again, making a silent pact with the robe. She keeps going, getting louder as she explains that even A-rank hunters are just the baseline, and the real competition is full of S-rank geniuses. Pluto finally looks over at her, completely unfazed. He knows exactly who's going to be there, and he's not impressed. He tells her flat out that his victory is already a guaranteed fact. Ling is speechless. She stares at him, wondering where this insane confidence is coming from, or if he even understands the words she's saying. Pluto asks the only thing that matters now: when does the tournament actually start? She tells him it's coming up in exactly 2 weeks. He looks at his golden crystal. 2 weeks isn't a long time, but it's more than enough for him to break every limit he has left. He clenches his fist as blue sparks of energy crackle around his hand. He checks his stats. His max MP is climbing, but it's useless if he can't find a way to keep it topped off while he grinds. He decides he's done for the day, and tells Ling he's heading home to get some shut-eye. Before she can even respond, he vanishes in a whirlwind of blue teleportation energy. Ling is left standing alone, completely baffled. The tournament is 2 weeks away, and instead of training like a madman, he's going to take a nap. The scene shifts to Pluto's apartment, sitting quiet under the starlit city sky. Pluto steps out of the shower, drying his head with a towel. He's looking forward to finally recharging his own batteries. But before he can hit the sack, He needs to take a closer look at his newest elite summon. He calls out Sharp, the Hexi marksman, and asks how many skills he has in his arsenal. Sharp reports that he has 4. Pluto tells him to pull up the skill panel, and the skeletal archer bows, immediately following the command. The first skill is Hexi vision. It lets Sharp see for a mile, track moving targets perfectly, and spot every single weakness an enemy has. The second is magic arrow, which lets him create arrows out of thin air that deal double the normal damage. Then there's magic arrow barrage, a skill that creates a formation of arrows to rain down death on a wide area. But the fourth skill is the real game changer, star-piercing arrow. It deals true damage, ignoring every defense the enemy tries to put up. Pluto rubs his chin. It sounds like an absolute nuke, so he asks Sharp why he hasn't seen it used in battle yet. Sharp admits the downside. It takes a full 3 minutes to charge up. In a real fight, finding a 3-minute window of safety is almost impossible. On top of that, if he doesn't pump enough mana into it, the arrow is too small to do any real damage, even if it hits. Pluto thinks it over. His current MP reserves could definitely fix the size issue, but 3 minutes is an eternity on a fast-moving battlefield. He decides to shelf the problem for now. He's exhausted and needs to make the most of this rare chance to get some real sleep. He tells Sharp to stand guard and keep a close eye on the room while he drifts off. He collapses onto the bed, thinking about how even a simple mattress on wooden planks feels like a luxury compared to his old life. As he falls into a deep sleep, he remembers a softness he never got to experience when he was a soldier in his previous world. But the peaceful moment doesn't last long. A voice starts calling out to him, urging him to wake up. In his dream, he sees the silhouette of Caleb, his old squad leader, standing over him on a battlefield. "Wake up, rookie." In Pluto's dream, his squad leader, Caleb, looms over him with a fierce expression, scolding him for falling asleep on watch. A younger, panicked Pluto grips his rifle tightly as Caleb barks about the danger of an enemy's sneak attack. Caleb stares him down, reminding him that a sentry holds the lives of the entire squad in their hands, not just their own. Another soldier stands nearby, casually asking Caleb to cut the rookie some slack after their long march. The soldier jokes that blamming a single rookie for a whole nation's invasion might be a bit of a stretch. Caleb doesn't back down, shouting that in enemy-occupied territory, even a second of slacking off means certain death for everyone. Caleb turns his gaze back, his tone softening as he acknowledges that he knows the risks better than anyone. He reveals that the rookie hasn't slept in 2 days and tells him to finally get some rest while he takes over the ship. Pluto laughs nervously, scratching his head and saying he's grown used to sleeping on the hard ground. The other soldier smiles, dreaming of the day the war ends so he can finally sink into a bed soft enough to disappear in. The peaceful moment is shattered by a terrifying whistling sound as a missile descends from the dark sky. Pluto's eyes fly wide with horror as the light from the impending blast reflects in his iris. A massive, fiery explosion erupts, consuming everything in a blinding flash of orange and yellow. The heat and pressure of the blast roar through the air, wiping out the squad in an instant. Pluto jolts awake in his apartment, gasping for air as cold sweat pours down his face. Sharp stands by the bed, his glowing blue eyes watching over his master as he notices he's finally conscious. Pluto rubs his face, trying to shake off the lingering dread of the nightmare as the morning light peeks into the room. He sits on the edge of his bunk, realizing the sun is already up and it's time to head out. Fully dressed in his black suit, he checks his system window and sees his MP has fully recharged to its new cap. He clenches his fist, feeling the surge of power through his veins, his physical and mental state at their absolute peak. In the bustling city square, a golden teleportation light draws everyone's attention, leading them to believe high-rank professionals have arrived. Local hunters gossip about the rumors of a C-rank necromancer who broke 2 dungeon records in a single day. Pluto walks through the crowd, ignored by the chattering hunters as he searches for a familiar face. He spots Ling waving at him from across the hall, calling him over with a bright smile. As they walk, Ling suggests they head to the exchange, first to collect the gold from his recent gear sales. She gives him a suspicious look, guessing that he didn't just ask to meet up to talk about money. Pluto asks her if there's a dungeon nearby, with even more monsters to slay than the Abyss Spider nest. Ling is shocked, asking him why he wants to torture himself, and explaining that more mobs don't always mean more experience. She rubs her temples in frustration before admitting that such places do exist, but they are far from normal. She describes large-scale dungeons, massive maps where the monster count can reach into the tens of thousands. The entrance to these dungeons is a swirling vortex of red and black energy, signaling a massive spike in difficulty. Ling holds up 3 fingers, explaining the strict rule that requires a party of at least 3 people to enter. Pluto ponders this, realizing he'll need to find a team if he wants to take on the challenge. Ling warns him that large-scale teams usually have fixed rosters and almost never accept newcomers on such short notice. Pluto smirks confidently, telling her that he only needs to find one more person to complete their group. Ling recoils in horror, shouting that she has no intention of following him into such a blatant death trap. She continues to rant, saying that only a complete idiot would join up with 2 random strangers for something so dangerous. Pluto remains calm, simply stating that he can pay a significant amount of gold as compensation for her help. Suddenly, a young man named Arkansas Long raises his hand, nervously asking if he can join their party. Ling stares at him with wide, white eyes, thinking to herself that she's finally found the exact kind of idiot she was just talking about. Long runs up, offering to fill the missing spot in their party for the upcoming dungeon. Ling isn't buying it. She wants to know why someone would suddenly want to join a tiny team of 2. Long looks away awkwardly, admitting he has another motive for wanting to tag along. Ling jumps on it immediately, pointing her finger and shouting that she knew he was up to something. Long thinks to himself that his motive definitely doesn't involve her. Pluto doesn't seem to care about the hidden motive and welcomes him to the party anyway. He adds that having your own reasons for raiding is normal, but Ling is still worried about being a non-combat support girl. Pluto turns back to reassure his teammate. He tells her flat out that he won't let her get hurt. Ling stares up at him, her face turning bright red. She quickly hides under her oversized hat, telling him to stop acting so cool. Long leans in to poke her cheek, wondering if she's wearing some kind of natural red blush. That sets her off. She calls him a pervert and gets ready to throw hands. While Ling starts kicking the poor guy, Pluto heads toward the exchange to cash in some coins. She begs him not to leave her alone with the weirdo. The 3 of them head into the building to settle their loot. The exchange staff welcomes Pluto back and asks if all the gear has been counted. The staff member is incredibly respectful, inviting Pluto to settle the payment in the VIP room. Long are stunned by the sheer amount of respect the staff is showing him. Long points upward, asking why the guy wants them to look so high. He realizes Pluto's loot was stacked all the way to the ceiling and completely loses it. When Pluto returns, Long is still buzzing with excitement as they're told to come back soon. He confirms everything is ready and they can head out now. The mood shifts as Pluto sets their next target, a massive large-scale dungeon. Onlookers are baffled that only 3 people are planning to challenge a raid of that size. They arrive at the Black Ice Fortress, a level 17 dungeon where people recognize Pluto as the solo record breaker. The crowd is skeptical, thinking there's no way a 3-person team can clear it. The entrance is a massive swirl of dark energy that makes the trio look tiny. Pluto checks the stats. Over 2,000 monsters is just fine by him. He notes that even the elite squads took over 10 hours to clear the highest difficulty. Long asks what difficulty they're going for, while Ling suggests sticking to the easy bronze level. Pluto isn't interested in the easy route. Bronze doesn't give nearly enough experience. He announces they're picking Doomsday difficulty because he intends to shatter the record. Ling panics, reminding him that they'd be competing against the absolute best guilds in the world. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over her, and a voice asks who exactly they think they're competing with. Ling freezes as she feels the overwhelming pressure behind her. It's Jordan Chase and the Fang Squad, the elite team determined to take the top spot for themselves. The captain stares down at her, and she immediately backtracks, claiming nobody was saying anything. Pluto reaches out and places a hand on her shoulder to steady her. He faces the massive warrior and tells him directly that his squad is the one that's going to set the new record. Jordan Chase is annoyed, recognizing the famous necromancer but wondering if he's actually serious. He demands to know which squad Pluto is with and how many people he's brought along. Pluto keeps it simple. His squad is new, has no name, and only consists of 3 people. Jordan Chase and his entire crew are absolutely stunned by the claim. He puts a hand to his head, trying to process the sheer stupidity of what he just heard. Then he just starts howling with laughter. He asks if they're nuts for trying a large-scale dungeon as a trio, while the crowd wonders how they even got in. Pluto isn't bothered at all, while Long looks visibly annoyed, asking what is so funny. He tells his team they've wasted enough time and heads straight for the portal. Jordan Chase watches them walk away, clearly confused by their lack of fear. He yells for them to hold it, and the trio comes to a halt. They turn back to see what else the captain of the Fang Squad has to say. He says he won't stop Pluto and the girl from seeking death, but he has a problem with the 3rd member. He points directly at Long, telling him he isn't allowed to go with them. He reminds Long of the time he invited him to join the Fang Squad and was turned down. Long starts sweating, shocked the guy actually remembered that. Jordan Chase calls him a rare S-rank professional and says following, "Trash, like Pluto and Ling is a waste of talent." The bystanders can't believe it. They had no idea the kid was actually an S-rank. He turns it into a threat, saying if Long turns him down in public, his career in the White Tiger Guild is over. Long is in a tough spot. He doesn't want to be blacklisted, but he really wants to stick with Pluto. He looks at Pluto, hopping for some kind of guidance on what to do. Ling starts panicking, telling Pluto to stop Long from leaving or they won't have enough people to start the raid. Pluto keeps it simple, telling Long he won't pressure him and to just follow his heart. Long is clearly moved by Pluto's words, his eyes widening as he makes his decision. He takes a big breath, psyching himself up for the fallout. Then he shouts it out for everyone to hear. He's going into the dungeon with Pluto. Jordan Chase's face immediately drops into a cold, dangerous glare. He's seething that his public offer was just thrown back in his face like garbage. He watches them walk off, looking like he's about to explode from the disrespect. He blames the Necromancer for giving his teammates a fake sense of confidence and vows to make them pay. He yells after them that no trio in history has ever survived a large-scale dungeon. He tells them to enjoy their final moments while they're still alive. Pluto doesn't even look back, simply standing there about to make history. With that, they vanish into the red glow of the portal. Jordan Chase tells his squad to forget those idiots. Their only goal is taking first place. His men raise their weapons and shout in agreement, ready to storm the fortress. Inside, Long is underwhelmed, wondering why this legendary fortress looks like a crappy cave. Pluto's face is stone cold as he tells them to just keep moving. Long gets back to bragging, confirming he was the only S-rank in his entire academy class. Pluto asks him to clarify his role. Is he combat, support, or a healer? Ling warns him not to cave the roof in as he starts channeling his power. Long says he knows what he's doing. A strange cyan energy begins to hiss around his hand. He proudly reveals his class, the S-rank Space Ripper. He explains that he has the power to tear through space itself and create rifts. Long explains that while a single rift isn't much on its own, its utility changes when a second one is open. He hints that things get interesting when the two rifts are connected across different locations. To demonstrate his power, he reaches into a rift and begins to pull something through. He effortlessly steals Ling's hat through the portal, explaining that linked rifts allow even living beings to pass. Long plops the hat back onto Ling's head, nodding that he can open the exit rift wherever he chooses. Pluto quickly catches on to the strategic value. They have a guaranteed way to evacuate the dungeon at any time. Long adds that he can tear space and open a rift to any location he has previously seen. Ling finally understands why he was so brave. He has a get-out-of-jail-free card if things turn sour. Long promises to bring his party members along with him during critical moments. He admits that he would have followed Pluto regardless of whether he had his escape ability or not. Pluto acknowledges the skill's potential for tactical repositioning and ambushing enemies from their blind spots. Long is convinced that Pluto must be an S-rank hunter to clear doomsday dungeons by himself. Pluto stays humble, claiming that his class is just a simple necromancer. With a slight smirk, he mentions that he can simply summon slightly more undead than others. Long remains skeptical that a little bit more would be enough to achieve such legendary feats. He turns to Ling, asking about her class and assuming she's a caster because of her hat. Ling admits that she is an ordinary A-rank professional with nothing special about her. Long sighs, finding her lack of a unique specialty to be quite boring. They spot a light at the end of the dilapidated cave, signaling their arrival at the true dungeon. As they emerge from the tunnel, the scale of the dungeon leaves Long and Ling speechless. The colossal black ice fortress stands before them, a massive castle built amidst a frozen wasteland. Long is amazed by the size, nodding that it would take dozens of people hours to scout it. Ling worries that, as a trio, it will take them days to explore the entire fortress. Pluto isn't worried, calmly preparing his weapon as they approach the gates. He grips his scythe, as shadows begin to billow out around him like a dark mist. A powerful whoosh of energy erupts as the necromancer prepares to unleash his power. Pluto repeats his claim about being able to summon a little bit more undead than others. A massive army of armored skeletons rises from the dark energy, filling the courtyard. Long is absolutely floored, realizing Pluto's little bit more was a massive understatement. Pluto gives the command for his soldiers to search every corner and leave nothing unchecked. Ling and Long estimate that there must be several hundred skeletal soldiers in this initial wave. Pluto decides that 100 soldiers isn't enough and begins to rapidly multiply that number. The system windows flash as his skeletal army grows from 100 to 500 in seconds. The Legion of Undead begins its march on the fortress, their footsteps rattling on the stone bridge. The first group of skeletons readies their weapons as they enter the fortress interior. Pluto's expression hardens as he senses the first encounter with the dungeon's guardians. A hulking black ice soldier stands in their path, its dark armor shimmering with frost. A skeleton attempts to strike, but the blow is caught on the soldier's thick, dark shield. The skeleton's blade clangs off the armor, failing to pierce the magical ice defense. Pluto observes that even with a 7-level advantage, the armor is proving to be extremely resilient. He commands his soldiers to stop hitting the armored sections and find a more vulnerable opening. The skeletons coordinate their attacks smoothly, dodging and gradually overwhelming the icy guardian. A skeleton soldier executes a black ice soldier with a precise strike to the head. The enemy collapses into shards of ice, and a system notification confirms the kill and grants experience points. Long is overjoyed, exclaiming that receiving 15 EXP from a single mob is incredibly generous. Pluto notices that he actually receives 20 EXP per kill, realizing his class grants him a distinct advantage in experience distribution. Long calculates the potential gains from the thousands of mobs in the fortress, but Pluto remains unimpressed by the small numbers. Long jokingly laments that, as a soloist, Pluto doesn't understand the hardships of sharing experience in a typical party. He recalls a past mission at the Abyss Spider Nest, where sharing experience made their progress agonizingly slow. Pluto realizes that by taking all the experience for himself, his growth speed is far beyond that of any normal hunter. Long asks why Pluto would choose such a massive, time-consuming dungeon if he only cared about efficiency. Pluto reveals that while experience is a nice bonus, he has a much more critical objective to achieve within the fortress. 30 minutes later, the relentless assault of the undead continues to echo throughout the fortress halls. Another black ice soldier falls to a skeleton's blade, adding more experience to Pluto's growing total. The hallway is filled with the remains of fallen enemies as the skeletal army pushes forward without tiring. Long and Ling are stunned by the clear speed, noting that 300 kills in just half an hour is an impossible feat for most. A special system notification appears for Pluto, rewarding him for his systematic elimination of the guards. His mana capacity increases permanently, and he anticipates it reaching massive levels by the time the dungeon is clear. Pluto decides to move deeper into the fortress to maximize his summoning efficiency and reach the heart of the stronghold. He offers Long and Ling the choice to stay behind in the cleared area if they are afraid of the danger ahead. Long enthusiastically grabs Pluto's hand, begging to accompany him so he can witness the army in action. He's eager to see the cool sight of the skeletal legion tearing through the enemy ranks with his own eyes. Pluto warns him that he won't be able to provide protection once they reach the denser monster zones in the inner sanctum. Long confidently claims that as an S-rank, he can look after himself and might even be of assistance to Pluto. Ling hesitates, afraid that going too deep is dangerous, and screams at the two men not to leave her behind. Pluto shrugs and heads deeper into the fortress, followed closely by a determined and excited Long. Ling is left standing alone, frozen by the terrifying prospect of being stranded in the dark, massive dungeon by herself. Ling imagines cowering on the ground as an icy night looms over her, desperately screaming for help. Tears well up in her eyes as the monster closes in. Pluto and Long keep walking, barely glancing back as she begs them to wait. She quickly scrambles to her feet, deciding it's safer to stick with the group. Long teases her for being a scaredy cat, which she weakly denies through her blushing face. The trio enters a massive, dark archway leading deeper into the frozen ruins. Pluto warns them to stay close and follow his orders once they're inside. Long is all for it. They move through the stone courtyard, surrounded by a small army of undead soldiers. Ling worries about getting lost in the maze-like city, but Pluto explains he has eyes everywhere through his summons. An hour passes, and Long is actually starting to enjoy the warlike atmosphere. Ling isn't convinced. Pluto gives him a cold reality check, telling him that once he's seen real war, he won't find it cool. Deeper in the palace, a separate squad of skeletons marches up a grand staircase. The skeletons advance cautiously, their bones rattling on the cold stone. A massive armored leg blocks their path, glowing with a chilling light. The dark frost giant glares down at them, its eyes burning with a menacing red glow. The monster swings its massive club, creating a gust of wind that sends the skeletons flying. A skeleton is completely crushed under the weight of the blow. Two of the giants stand guard, easily swatting away the small undead soldiers. Miles away, Pluto's eyes glow purple as he experiences the slaughter through his shared vision. He stops dead in his tracks, making the others worry if he's run out of mana. He tells them that over a dozen of his soldiers were just wiped out in a single instant. Long gets excited, wondering if they've finally found the dungeon boss. He's eager to see how a large-scale boss compares to the ones he's seen before. He tries to drag Pluto along to go take a look. Long has to snap his fingers in Pluto's face to get his attention. Pluto is still mentally connected to his frontline scouts. Through the eyes of a skeleton, the purple light of Pluto's control flickers. The giants loom over the remains of the first wave, ready for more. One of Pluto's remaining skeletons raises its blade to strike. It swings with everything it has, but the monster is far too strong. With a single counterattack, the skeleton is shattered into a million pieces. Its skull bounces across the floor, the purple glow in its eyes fading. The connection is completely severed. Pluto exhales, finally coming back to himself as Long watches him with concern. Long asks if he saw the boss, but Pluto shakingly admits he was just sharing vision. He clarifies that it wasn't even the boss. It was just two elite monsters guarding the way. The others are stunned that mere elites could cause that much damage. Pluto doesn't hesitate. He orders every nearby soldier to converge on the giant's position. A massive pillar of dark energy and skeletons swarms the palace gate. Ling wonders if they can just skip them, but Pluto knows those monsters are the only thing between them and the final boss. They look toward the massive palace gates, where the true power of the dungeon waits. Pluto leads the charge, determined to end this raid as fast as possible. A squad of skeletons slowly makes their way up a massive set of stone stairs. Two enormous dark frost giants stand guard at the top, their eyes glowing red in the shadows. The undead army rushes forward, their bones rattling as they charge the giants. One of the giants swings a massive axe with a heavy whoosh. The weapon hits the stone with a massive boom, obliterating the front line of skeletons instantly. A single skeleton skull rolls across the cold floor, the only thing left of the scouts. Ling is terrified, realizing these guys are stronger than most dungeon bosses. Long even suggests they should just bail while they can. Pluto is unfazed, calmly checking his mana levels while calculating his next move. He notes that since Long is here, he doesn't need to waste MP on crowd control. He calls for more soldiers, confident that his current mana pool is more than enough. Long is stunned. He's starting to wonder if Pluto even has a limit on how many things he can summon. He warns Pluto that throwing more fodder at those monsters won't change anything. Long looks up, waiting for Pluto's reasoning. Pluto asks him to open two rifts, one right in front of them and one directly over the giants' heads. Long is surprised that a guy this powerful actually needs his help. He eagerly agrees. He shouts a confident "I can," and prepares his magic. Pluto specifies that the rifts need to be huge and stay open for at least 10 minutes. Long steps forward, telling Pluto to just leave the heavy lifting to him. He admits he's never held a rift that long before, but he's willing to burn himself out for the team. A massive swirl of teal energy begins to tear through the air in front of the archer. The rift hisses as it expands, filling the hallway with a strange, dark mist. With a sharp command, Long stabilizes the gateway. The giants remain at their posts, completely unaware of the spatial rift forming above them. The exit point of the rift crackles with energy directly over the giants' heads. Long points out that even with the surprise attack, the skeletons can't scratch that black ice armor. Pluto looks back, revealing that he never intended to use regular soldiers for this fight. He reminds Long that a necromancer's arsenal isn't just limited to skeletons. With a sharp snap of his fingers, Pluto converts the summons into explosive gunpowder skeletons. Pluto signals, starting the transformation. Fire erupts in the skeleton's eye sockets. One skeleton hoists a heavy gunpowder barrel onto its shoulders. A whole legion follows suit, moving through the flames with their explosive cargo. Long stares in awe, finally seeing the power Pluto was talking about. Ling figures 100 of these things could level almost any dungeon. Pluto watches closely, wanting to test these bombs against the giants. He orders the first wave to head into the rift. The skeletons plummet from the sky, dropping right on top of their targets. A massive explosion erupts as the first few barrels connect. Long and Ling watch the smoke, hoping that did the trick. But as the dust clears, the giant is still standing tall. It looks completely unfazed, letting out a silent roar of defiance. Long thinks it did nothing, but Pluto noticed something. The thick ice armor on the giant's head is actually starting to melt. Pluto points out that was only 5 skeletons. He's got plenty more. An entire army of explosive undead is already lined up behind the portal. The giant swings its massive frost blade toward the rift. It brings the weapon down hard, trying to crush the magical opening. Ling panics, warning everyone that the attack is coming through the portal. Long grits his teeth, putting everything he has into stabilizing the rift. The massive blade slams into the portal's edge, but Long manages to hold it back. Pluto is impressed that Long can choose what stays out of his rifts. Panting, Long tells him to just focus on blowing these giants to bits. Pluto tells him to rest easy and let him handle the rest. He readies his scythe, dark energy crackling around the blade. The next group of skeletons charges into the portal. They swarm the giant's head, dropping a rain of barrels. A massive chain reaction of explosions tears through the giant's weapon and head. Fire and heat fill the throne room as the ice begins to fail. One final blast completely engulfs the battlefield. The smoke slowly begins to lift as the team watches the result. Pluto's summons finish their job, leaving nothing but steam behind. Pluto looks on, satisfied that the fight is over. The massive giants collapse into a pile of melting slush. Long finally drops to the ground, completely drained from the effort. Pluto gets a system alert. He just bagged 40,000 experience. Long checks his own notification, seeing a 12,000-point gain. Ling is stunned to see 5,000 points pop up for her too. Long hits level 14, hyped that he got so much just for holding a portal. Ling reaches level 14 as well, though she's confused she got anything for just watching. She notes that they've already cleared the elites and found the boss in under 3 hours. Ling acknowledges Pluto's massive contribution to their incredibly fast progress. A hefty 23,000 experience points push Pluto all the way to level 18. He notes that party play has definitely slowed down his usual leveling curve. Despite that, his magic stat is already sitting at a staggering 2,450. Long assumes it's time to head straight for the final boss, since the gates are finally clear. Pluto explains that killing the boss would force them out of the instance immediately, ending their run. Long is confused, thinking their main objective was just to break the speed record. Pluto corrects him, stating that the record was just a side goal, and a minor one at that. The news shocks his teammates, who wonder what else he could possibly be after. Pluto looks out over the dungeon, his real plan finally taking shape. He intends to hunt down and slaughter every single monster in the entire raid. The sheer scale of that goal leaves Ling and Long completely speechless. They can't believe he wants to leave 0 survivors before even touching the boss. Pluto confirms his plan. They'll enter the palace only after his army has finished the sweep. He takes a seat on the steps, telling the others they might as well get some rest. Ling wonders why anyone would go through the trouble of clearing over 1,000 mobs. Long speculates that Pluto might be chasing a notoriously difficult hidden quest. Ling finds the idea absurd, knowing just how impossible hidden quests usually are. Pluto stays quiet, knowing that a full clear is going to take a considerable amount of time. Elsewhere, the Rippers are pushing through their own section of the fortress. The bald leader smashes through the armored ranks of the Darkfrost soldiers. A single strike is enough to put down the frozen guards. He gets a measly 5 experience points for the kill and checks in with his team. His squad reports they're wrapping up and will be finished in minutes. With the timer at just over 3 hours, the leader is confident they're setting a new record. Adrian scoffs at the idea of a 3-person party ever catching up to their elite pace. The leader agrees, believing only the top guilds are even worth considering as rivals. They assume Pluto's group is a non-factor because of their small size. Jordan Chase laughs, picturing the amateurs crying at the gates while facing the real army. Back at the palace steps, Pluto watches his experience ticks steadily climb. Long is amazed as the system floods his screen with free experience points. Over 500 soldiers fall in just half an hour, and they haven't lifted a finger. Ling jokes that Pluto would have a massive fan club if people knew about his carry service. Long notices the flow of points, starting to slow down as the mob density drops. Meanwhile, Pluto's passive trait is hard at work, permanently boosting his power with every kill. He knows he needs to finish the sweep to squeeze every drop of potential out of the raid. His skeletons continue their systematic massacre of the local garrison. Every fallen soldier brings Pluto another 20 experience points, and a permanent stat buff. He sighs as the last few stragglers are finally mopped up by his undead. The streets are left empty and silent, the entire 1,000-man army wiped from existence. Pluto stands up, his magic pool having grown by over 2,700 points. His magic stat hits the 3,000 mark, giving him a smirk as he faces the palace. Pluto reflects on the success of the raid so far, satisfied with the results of his full clear. Long is ecstatic about his rapid leveling, reaching level 15. While Ling is already nearing level 13, Pluto remains focused on the task at hand, nodding that only the final obstacle remains. He leads the group, and his skeletal minions up the long stairs toward the inner sanctum. Long marvels at the efficiency of Pluto's army, comparing their speed to the famous top-tier guilds. They arrive at the towering, ornate gates that guard the boss's throne room. A wave of anxiety washes over Ling, as she considers the unknown power of the monster within. Without a moment's hesitation, Pluto commands his servants to open the path forward. The skeletons apply their supernatural strength to the massive, ancient stone doors. With a heavy, echoing grind, the gates yield, revealing a pitch-black chamber. The trio steps into the vast, chilling expanse of the throne room, surrounded by an icy mist. The atmosphere inside is thick, with a cold, malevolent energy that puts everyone on high alert. Pluto scans the deep shadows, his eyes sharp and unblinking as he searches for his target. Suddenly, a violent eruption of dark mana flares up from the far end of the hall. They press further into the gloom, their footsteps echoing sharply against the frozen floor. Ling finds the oppressive darkness deeply unsettling, her grip tightening on her staff. The tension reaches a breaking point as they approach the center of the silent chamber. Ling nervously asks where the sovereign is hiding, her voice barely a whisper in the dark. Pluto stops in his tracks, sensing a powerful presence watching them from directly ahead. A booming, ethereal voice rings out, demanding to know why the intruders do not kneel. The Dark Frost Sovereign, a level 17 raid boss, reveals himself upon a throne of ice. Long is nearly paralyzed by the sheer physical weight of the sovereign's oppressive aura. The ancient king promises a gruesome death for those who have dared to enter his domain. He summons a wicked spear of dark frost, crackling with murderous blue energy. Pluto is completely unimpressed, openly mocking the boss for staying hidden while his army was routed. He stares down the sovereign with a defiant, mocking grin that infuriates the knight. Outraged by the human's arrogance, the sovereign lashes out with blinding, lethal speed. A streak of blue light tears through the air, aimed directly at Pluto's throat. Elsewhere, a veteran party struggles to recover after barely surviving the entrance guards. Their leader, the bald Ripper leader, urges the healers to work faster so they don't lose momentum. The frontline warriors are still shaken, realizing fire skills are the only way to hurt the giants. The leader calculates that even with 5 fire users, it will take them 2 hours to clear the gate. A stark comparison is drawn, showing that Pluto achieved the same feat in under 10 minutes. The veteran leader warns that the true nightmare of this raid is the sovereign himself. He remembers the sovereign as a wall of power that could instantly annihilate the unprepared. It took his elite team 11 agonizing hours to finally bring the fallen king down. He believes no random, small party could ever survive more than a few seconds against him. Back in the throne room, the sovereign's spear appears to pierce right through Pluto's neck. Ling and Long scream in horror, certain that their leader has been killed before their eyes. To their utter disbelief, Pluto simply touches his throat and claims to be perfectly fine. Ling is hysterical, unable to process how he survived such a clear, lethal strike. Pluto dismisses their concern, walking toward the boss as if he hadn't just cheated death. Pluto stands with his companions, quietly contemplating his next move. He decides to keep the spectral state ability a secret for now, viewing it as a vital trump card that fewer people should know about. He considers bringing his army inside and using his explosive skeletons to finish the boss, but he realizes that Ling and Long would inevitably be caught in the devastating blasts. The Dark Frost Sovereign is visibly baffled, demanding to know how the human remains unharmed after being clearly pierced by his frozen blade. Looking up at the towering, dark entity, Long is overwhelmed by the Sovereign's massive size, wondering if they truly have the power to defeat such a monster. Realizing the immediate danger to his teammates, Pluto commands Long to open a rift and evacuate them to the area outside the palace. Long immediately complies, channeling his energy to tear open a swirling, green-hued portal in the middle of the hall. Enraged by their attempt to flee, the Sovereign lashes out, sending a barrage of magical projectiles whistling through the air. Pluto remains eerily calm, his eyes glowing with a faint purple light as he prepares to make his move under the incoming fire. With sudden, explosive speed, Pluto scoops up the paralyzed Ling and charges toward the closing rift, urging the team to go. They plunge into the swirling energy of the portal, just as the Sovereign's attack reaches their previous position. The Sovereign's icy spears strike the stone floor with incredible force, hitting nothing but air and the lingering shadows of the intruders. The projectiles continue to rain down, shattering against the ground in the empty spot where the trio once stood. The Sovereign's rage boils over as he screams after them, calling them rats for daring to run from his royal judgment. His dark power flares violently as he swears that he will find them no matter where they hide within his fortress. He raises his massive, jagged black sword toward the ceiling, the air around him crackling with lethal dark mana. With glowing red eyes fixed on the empty hall, the ancient king vows to kill the ones who insulted his majesty. In a quieter part of the dungeon ruins, a dark rift suddenly tears open, signaling the party's successful escape from the throne room. Long stumbles out of the portal first, gasping for breath as he looks back with wide eyes, helping the others follow. He calls out for Pluto in a panic, fearing that his leader didn't make it into the rift before it collapsed. Pluto steps out of the fatting shadows, looking completely unfazed as he continues to carry Ling in his arms. As the rift closes behind them, Pluto explains that he had to carry Ling out because she was frozen in place by the boss's aura. He looks down at the flustered mage, calmly asking if she's finally recovered enough to stand on her own 2 feet. Ling's face turns a bright shade of red as she quickly scrambles away from him, loudly insisting she didn't ask to be carried. Long can't help but tease his embarrassed teammate, jokingly asking her if being pressed against Pluto's chest felt firm. A massive explosion rocks the courtyard. The Dark Frost Sovereign slams his blade down, sending a shockwave through the area. Cooldown dodges the blast, dragging his teammates to safety. The armored giant glares at them, declaring there is no escape. Pluto doesn't look bothered. He tells the boss he's the one who should be running. He reveals the trap. 100 explosive skeletons are already surrounding the knight. With a cold grin, Pluto says his goodbyes. The entire place goes up in a massive, blinding explosion. Ling is stunned, wondering when he even managed to set all this up. She remembers the courtyard was empty just before they went inside. They were only gone for a minute, but Pluto's planning was steps ahead. Long realizes the order must have been given before they even entered the palace. Ling watches him fix his tie, realizing their leader is as cautious as he is powerful. As the smoke clears, a dark energy begins to swirl on the ground. Long cheers, thinking even a raid boss can't stand against them. But Pluto isn't celebrating. He's still staring into the smoke. He points out the lack of experience points. The boss is still alive. A red core rises from the darkness as a hidden quest notification pops up. The trio watches as the strange sphere pulses with energy. Long wonders if this is supposed to be some kind of raid reward. Pluto holds him back, sensing the danger radiating from it. The ice and stone from the surrounding structures begin to melt. Ling gasps as the houses themselves seem to be turning into liquid. All that material starts gathering around the glowing red sphere. A massive, liquid shadow starts towering over the courtyard. Pluto shouts for everyone to watch out as the ground starts to shake. The Sovereign's voice booms from the giant, demanding their deaths. Pluto pushes his teammates out of the way just in time. A massive arm of ice sweeps across with its sword, creating a devastating shockwave. Long and Ling can't believe it. The boss came back for a second phase. Pluto calmly watches the giant, analyzing its new form. He realizes the black sphere is the core, and they have to destroy it to win. The boss laughs. Impressed Pluto noticed his one vulnerability so quickly. He boasts that he's now one with the fortress and can regenerate forever. Pluto yells for his team to move as another massive strike comes for them. The impact craters the stone where they stood seconds ago. The courtyard is torn apart as the giant ice sword slams down. Pluto lands and confirms his target. He just needs to shatter that heart. The Sovereign taunts him, nodding that all his explosive summons were used up. Ling and Long worry that he won't be able to pull off another massive attack. Long asks if they should just retreat while they have the chance. Pluto looks back, telling Long to take Ling and get as far away as possible. Long asks how a necromancer could possibly find the core without detection skills. Pluto tells them to stay back and not look while he handles the fight. Long reluctantly agrees, trusting his leader's judgment. The Sovereign mocks him, promising to tear the arrogant human to shreds. Pluto adjusts his suit, thinking he can finally go all out once he's alone. A massive blow from the boss shatters the stone ground. A new spectral figure begins to materialize in the dust. Pluto summons Sharp, a skeletal magic sniper, and tells him to locate the monster's heart. Sharp warns that the target is massive, so it might take some time to scan. He estimates he needs at least 10 minutes to find the core. Pluto summons his skeleton soldiers, telling Sharp he'll hold the line until then. The boss's shadow looms over the battlefield as the skeletons charge. Dozens of skeletons are wiped out in a single strike. The boss continues his rampage, clearing 24 more soldiers in an instant. Pluto realizes even his strongest summons are being killed instantly by this boss. From a distance, another massive impact shakes the fortress walls. Long really wants to see what's happening, but Ling reminds him of Pluto's orders. Long gives in, though he's dying of curiosity. Back at the fight, Sharp finally tracks down the target. The core heart is hidden deep within the monster's abdomen. The Sovereign realizes they've found his weak spot and moves to finish them. He prepares a lethal strike, aiming to kill them before they can fire. Pluto's eye glows a predatory red as he asks who gave the boss permission to move. He activates Death Gaze, an overwhelming aura that paralyzes everything in its path. Ling and Long notice the sudden silence from the palace. A flash of red energy pulses outward, washing over them. The Sovereign is frozen in place, overcome by a sudden primal fear. He can't understand how a mere human could make a sovereign like him feel terrified. Pluto tells him it's only natural, since he's a sovereign too. The true king of the dead has arrived, and he's not alone. Pluto gives the final order for Sharp to pierce the core. A massive arrow of blue energy streaks across the battlefield. The projectile slams into the boss, shattering his crystalline form. The gargantuan entity explodes, collapsing into a heap of rubble. Pluto watches the dust settle, telling the boss to rest in peace with his soldiers. A flood of experience points pours in as the system confirms the kill. Pluto hits level 20, receiving a massive boost to his maximum magic stat. The milestone triggers a new reward, soul limit removal.